everybody. We're here. We are live now with less technical issues than we had before we were live.
Hey, fun.
All of our icons can actually be seen. Thank God.
Right.
Yay!
Yeah, I don't like this.
We don't want to talk
really
about it.
annoying. Yeah, it's so annoying. We're starting volume 5 today. Woo for that.
Ooh,
Yeah, all of
the big 5-0.
all of the excitement that I.
Oh wait, no,
5-0.
0-5. My bad. That's 50.
Yeah, my guy.
No. I realized it as soon as I said it. It's fine. I fixed it. I corrected it.
Yeah,
I meant
I was
five
gonna
golden
say,
rings for
I
Christmas.
mean, no, we get it. Math
there-
isn't
wait,
our strong suit either.
Nope.
Is 50? I don't.
2 + 2
This
is fish.
this series doesn't have 50 volumes, does it? By chance?
No.
Fuck. Never mind. All right. I thought I could save it, but no. Too late.
26 at best, my guy.
Dang, only half.
I finally turned on my Christmas tree lights. So
Oh yeah,
plugged
I'm
them
starting
in and got
mine.
them working.
Christmas stuff as well.
Christmas tree.
No.
You're such a bitch to put up every year.
That's why I never
Yep.
took mine down.
Real?
Well,
Oh,
see, you dressed it up for
that's
different
one way.
times of the year.
Yeah.
One year it's Christmas, or one part of the year it's a Christmas tree. One part of the year it's the Halloween tree.
It's the
One part of the
Valentine's
year
tree.
it's
Reminds me.
it's the
I should
Valentine's
turn on my
tree.
groovy
Yeah.
lights.
And then another
actually.
part of the year, you just put another tree across it, and then it's the Easter tree.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, and
Or you.
and for
That's
the
why I
4th of
like
July,
RGB because you
for
can
the
just
4th
change
of
the
July,
colors.
it's America's tree.
Yeah,
Yep.
perfect.
There you go.
Tree
Why
for
not?
every occasion.
Exactly. I just have a tree in my house. It's okay. It's not a big deal. It's a big bear. Relax about it.
It's an
Is it
tree
time to
being-
do the Pandora?
It's just a fake tree. Relax about it. Also, we're supposed to be getting snow today. That's neat.
Maybe Moon will finally see it for the first time ever.
No,
I don't.
no, he won't.
It's
Only
not
Northern
the first
Georgia's
time.
gonna get
That's
some.
the problem.
Only
We've had
Northern
snow before, and it shut down the state for a week.
only Northern Georgia is supposed to get any like trickling of snow.
Maybe I see winter for
It's
now.
not gonna get low enough to get
there's
to where Moon
Christmas.
is. All right. So yeah, that's what's going on right now. Anybody north of us is getting dumped on with snow.
I'm north and I'm not getting any snow yet.
Well, no, you're not in that. The Arctic air isn't blasting
North
on you
of
guys.
you specifically, yeah.
north of me.
You're like north center, not northwest.
No, I'm north. I'm southeast, my dude.
Okay, so well,
I'm on the east side of the Mississippi River, my guy. There you go. All right.
let's see.
So Tony and them are gonna get
let's see,
snow.
where
People in Kentucky are gonna get a bunch of snow. We're gonna get like a little bit. I don't know how much, but we're supposed to see snow today, and it's already 31
right.
degrees right here, I believe. Actually, that's a good question.
That's chilly.
Alexa, what's the temperature outside right now? 30.
Let's make sure. Am I logged in on this
There
computer?
we go. It is 30 degrees outside right now. That's wonderful.
Yeah, we're at 36 with a feels like 30.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I don't want to
40
know what
is
it
where
feels
I'm at.
like because I'm pretty sure we're down in the 20s pretty easily.
I wouldn't doubt
It's
it.
one of those things where I have to go outside, turn my car on, come back inside, wait for 5 minutes,
Yep,
come
I relate.
back in the car once it's nice and warm and toasty and doesn't.
And
Yep.
defogged potentially,
Hopefully.
allegedly.
Oh no, we have to do
Allegedly.
defogging year round. We live around a lot of rivers. There's
No,
fog.
Uh,
There be fog here. Now defrosting, that's the only thing that I have to worry about in the winter.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right. Well, now that we've talked about how the weather affects us, actually no, we missed out on one. So it's really funny to me that Shem was getting a bunch of the snow earlier, and now they've got the record high temperatures for their area at this time of year.
Oh,
Yeah,
how
it's really
lucky.
odd. Well, it's really odd. It's just
The hot air coming up from the southwest is like pushing the air that's coming in from Canada
mhm.
further east instead of to the west. So we're getting all of the cold. We're getting all of the cold.
Yeah,
Uh,
believe me, it's coming, Moon. Colorado will not stay warm for very long. We get very late, weird snows sporadically throughout, like the quote unquote spring.
yeah,
I'm
we
just
will
It's
cold.
very
typically
odd.
see.
I know.
I mean,
I feel you.
even down here, we'll sometimes get our final snowfall in March. And it's usually not December where we get snowed on. It's January and February that we get snowed on. And
Hmm.
like last year was my first well, I mean last winter season was my first winter here, and we got dumped on with snow, and I live up a big hill. So yeah, that was so yeah, that was a thing.
Keep
Just
climbing up
trying to
that
get out of
hill.
here because
Yep.
we had ice and all sorts of stuff. Well, you've seen the hills I've had to go up to get to my place, Moon.
Yes, I have.
Imagine that being
Suck.
imagine all that being iced over.
Uh-huh.
Gross.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's not. No, I would not want to
Gross.
imagine that or even entertain that thought. That's
Yeah.
terrible. I'm
Well,
sorry.
Very
that
gross.
thankfully there are two ways out of the apartment complex, and the other hill not so steep of an incline.
Oh,
Oh
okay.
God.
Yeah, way better on the incline. All right. Time to get to Mushoku Tensei. We are starting volume 5 this time. So basically we're at about where 16 and 17 are. So the whole city of Millis arc is what we're going to be going on. Oh, pardon me. Well, let's go ahead and
some
jump into it.
leftover
I am
turkey?
the reader today. Huh?
Hmm.
Had some leftover turkey earlier.
No,
Oh, sorry.
I'm just
Ah,
I just yawned.
because you're sleepy.
No,
Oh,
no.
I thought you were saying
yawn.
that you did.
Yawning doesn't equal sleepy.
Turkey can make you sleepy. I heard.
Yeah,
I
tryptophan
mean,
in
you
the
mean you
turkey
But
have
then
to
can
again,
imply
be
you're
that.
also
my dude. I'm pointing out the cause of this whole conversation. I yawned, and then you were like, "Ah, turkey," and I was like, "Yeah, this morning, it's not kicking in."
I was gonna say turkey also in addition to like the numerous carbs one would eat on that holiday.
Oh no,
Yeah.
I
So
am well aware of what a food coma I got on Thursday. It was
yeah,
nice. How was
yeah.
everyone's Thanksgiving, by the by?
It was all right. I couldn't
That was
visit
pretty good.
extended family
That was
because I
pretty
was sick,
nice.
but it was okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
I got to play Mario Kart with
Yeah,
a
it's
bunch of
okay. I got to
people
hang out with my mom
while
and dad at
eating
home though. It was
and
cool.
drinking.
oh, okay.
Sounds fun.
Oh yeah, I
My
got the streamer to 1-to-1v1 me.
my brother and their family, my brother and his family stayed here because of financial reasons. They had to cancel all the trips they were going to be doing out of state for the holidays. And so,
No.
because they were
No.
here, we did Thanksgiving in his house, and we had 2 turkeys because I guess they forgot when I told them I was given a turkey by the VA. So I had like a
Yep.
12-pound turkey, like a big old mamma jamma, and they bought an
Nice.
8-pound turkey. So we had to cook 2 different turkeys.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
While I was at my family's Thanksgiving, he calls me up. Was like, "Hey, what's up?" I'm like, "Not much. Having Thanksgiving." Oh, we're grilling a turkey, and I'm like, "Why grill?"
I mean, yeah.
Why not?
I guess
It's
if you keep
really
it up.
weird to try and grill a turkey when you're not smoking the turkey.
Yeah, I was
I
gonna
was
No,
say.
we
thinking
didn't
smoking
have.
too.
Here's the
Actually,
thing. Here's the thing. We put it in the little pan, the turkey pan thing that you get for them, and then we covered it in aluminum foil. So it's not like we were just throwing it on the grill. It's not
Okay, I
how
was
that
gonna say.
worked.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's what I thought.
but his propane ran out about halfway through, so I just made him
No.
move the tray over, and I
You had
shoved
to
that son of a
call up
bitch in the
Hank
oven.
Hill.
Yeah.
No. I didn't call Hank Hill in his BDSM shop. They sell
You have a
propane
Propane and
I'm
propane
calling you out,
accessories.
Bill.
There you go.
Yep.
There you go. Yeah, it's BDSM shop. That's what I know. All right. Anyway. But yeah. So
Yeah.
did that. Brought over a bunch of food. We had a meal. Oddly enough, my brother and I could talk politics, and no voices are raised. Nobody gets
That's pretty good.
angry. Nobody swings at each other. And to be fair,
Wait,
we don't
post-
have like views that align completely with one another. We do have differing views, but I just want to put it out there. There are families that can sit down at Thanksgiving dinner, bring up politics, and not want to swing at each other. We
Cool.
can just
Be
have a
civil
civil
about it.
discourse. Yeah,
That's cool.
it's possible. No one's calling us anything horrible. Nobody. Yeah, we're just chatting.
Yeah.
Anyhow,
No one's
It is what
throwing
it
the
is.
turkey
Just
across
chatting
at the other
stream
person
for
across the
Thanksgiving.
hall.
I have plenty of turkey for leftovers around here, so I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, same.
The
Sounds
downside is I've started with now I have started with the Christmas cookies. You know, the little tins of Christmas cookies.
Ooh,
Oh, those are
Yeah.
nice.
Those
We get
are
like
ni-
the Italian cookies.
Yeah,
Those are
I
nice.
get those, and I got some eggnog, and yeah, so much for weight
Cinnamon.
loss.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
don't
okay.
do
That's
You gotta put on that
January's
winter
thing.
weight.
anymore.
Yeah.
I
It's
do
all
not
good.
have to put on that winter weight. I already have the winter weight.
That's
Well,
what
it's
New Year's
just to be
resolutions are
safe.
for.
Yep. That you proceed to break immediately.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Oh, Moon, tell them about
Yeah.
the early Christmas that is us playing Stardew Valley.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah, I saw
So
that.
me, Richie, Fenris, and Kyrie, we started playing Stardew Valley. Kyrie was like begging for us to get into it. Fenris had already played it a good amount. Richie bought it a bit recently, and then it was on sale. Like I think it was yesterday, day before. No, it was yesterday. And I
Yeah.
was like, all right, I'll get it. And we chilled. It was a lot of fun. We
It
were all
was a
just
lot
Yeah,
of
sounds
sitting in a
cozy.
call.
Yeah,
I heard good things about it.
it was the Christmas gift to myself because it's on sale. So it was like
Yeah,
under 20
That's
bucks.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, okay, yeah, I'll
That's a
get
good
it.
deal. You can buy Baldur's Gate for like less than $50.
All right.
Oh, it's like 10.50
Yeah.
right now.
I already own Baldur's Gate.
I picked it up. It's pretty cool.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
it
we
is.
know. Oh, we know. Who you romancing?
No one yet. I like just started. My friends and I my friends wanted to help me out.
Oh,
So
okay,
we
gotcha.
kind of played it co-op for a bit, but like I really enjoyed so far. I'm leaning towards Karlach
Yes,
because
Karlach
Karlach's
is
really cool.
Karlach
Of
is
course.
the best.
Yeah.
100%.
Muscle mommy.
Yeah. I just
Sometimes-
like her vibe. It's cool.
Karlach
It's
is
like, fuck
great.
yes.
Also, you have not lived until you've watched the voice cast actually playing D&D together as their characters.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So
Oh,
like,
that's
there's
wonderful.
nothing greater than Asterion and Karlach flirting with each other, and everybody's like, "Aw, mommy and daddy are getting along."
I can't take Astarion seriously sometimes. I love his voice actor, and I know he's very serious in the game, but like I keep thinking back to like the Gustarian videos.
It's
I'm
like,
like,
this
Le
voice is
honk.
tied to this thing, and nothing will change it. Nothing you
Is
say or
that
do will
your
change that.
sandwich? Not anymore.
It's mine.
Mm.
Fucking Astarion, he's funny.
Your sandwich?
Yeah,
Not
no,
anymore. It's mine now.
Yeah, he loves his character like 3000%, and that's
Mhm.
what kind of sells it. I love it. So
Oh
he's
yeah.
great.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, actually, okay, listen. Before I played Baldur's Gate 3, I was watching a friend play the Dragon Age Stern Guard, or
Mhm.
whatever the fuck that game is
Veilguard.
called, the Veil Guard. And
Mhm.
I'm like, Jesus Christ, this fucking voice acting. Some of the people on it just sound so like I've not come to realize like what quality voice acting is when I've heard people who aren't completely into it. But then again, it's probably not a fair thing to say, but it sounded like they were given the lines without context. And it sounds really off in some scenes. You know what I mean? It's like some people die and they're like, what was that? And it's like you would say it in the same cadence, like as a cat running by, you know, and not somebody dying in front of you. You know what I mean? It's
Is
just
he at
odd.
least a cat person or a cat-like?
I don't
person?
know. I don't
I don't
know.
know.
A cat running by, I would sometimes be like, "What was that?"
Yeah, like what the fuck? And you know, like, oh, what was that? You know, something
What
like
the What was that?
trivial instead of, oh, this
Mhm.
guy died. Holy fucking shit, you know? So I don't know.
Ah, just another
Oh
person
no,
died. No big
he's
deal.
dead now.
Yeah, it's I think it's mostly just from the main
Oh,
character because it's like the avatar character, but it's just like, I don't know. Some of the scenes are really weird. Like some characters are like obviously in a very bad mood or sad,
Mhm.
and then they come in and do like a Marvel quip, and I'm like, huh?
What's my motivation for this scene?
It's very odd. But anyway,
Oh,
I appreciate all the voice acting in Baldur's Gate 3. Going back to that, it's
Mhm.
great. I love it.
The other thing before we jump into it and get started,
Yes.
a couple of quick updates on the Fat Dog side of things.
Mm.
Shield episode 4 is now out. Writing is about to begin for Shield episode 5.
Oh.
I'm really looking forward to it because I get to play a character that's not getting horribly murdered or just is only there for like one episode.
I didn't think that was a possibility for you, my man.
My dude.
We've been talking about this for a while. I get to play another villain. I'm looking forward to it.
Hooray.
Hell yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone likes
Oh
playing villains.
yeah. I don't know what it is about like
Mm.
the game of the year like nominee games and me that I just never play. That's just like it's not. I'm not gonna play it. It's like that with Elden Ring, with Baldur's Gate.
Elden Ring's
I don't
so
know like
good.
the years before. Like I don't get it. It's like everyone's like, oh, these are the best games of the year. It's like I always like, nah, they're not for me. But they're like, oh, this is game of the
That's
year.
fine.
It's like, why am I missing these? I think The Last of
I-
Us 2 was one year, but I mean, we all know about Last of Us. That'll
I finally have Last of Us 2, and I will be playing it on stream at some point.
No,
Did you play
wait,
the
you
first
have
one,
one
Steve?
and two?
No, just one.
Okay.
Oh, play the first one first.
Oh, you
Yeah,
meant
play
as
the
well.
first one.
Okay.
It's fucking fantastic.
Oh,
Mm.
100%.
The thing is, the outcry about The Last of Us Part 2, that's very intentional. They knew what they were doing. They knew that people weren't going to like how The Last of Us 2 kind of went. I think how they kind of told the story was a little disjointed. I think that if they had told it through a proper timeline of events where you're going back and forth between the two characters around the same time, would have made a hell of a lot more sense.
Mm.
I have a thought about Last of Us 2. I think part of it. Well, just real quick. Yeah,
Mhm.
I don't think it's too bad. I think some of it's like because like something was really exciting happened. People were looking forward to one thing and it didn't happen,
Mhm.
and it was like, oh, we waited 7 years just for that to. Oh, but it was more like what I think with it is that the main story of 2 should have been a third game, and there's chunks of 2 that I feel like should have been a more fleshed out into its own game, like a second game. And then what we got in this game is the main game should have been a third installment. And it probably would have been better.
My whole thing was, even if you viscerally did not like this game, that is no reason to threaten the voice actors.
Absolutely not.
Or
People got death threats.
Laura Bailey got a shit ton of death threats, and not
Man.
just death threats toward her. They were talking about killing her child.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah, no, it was bad.
Who at the time was like almost a year old.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So because of people like that, I will forever stand The Last of Us 2, even though I didn't necessarily agree. Like, I thought it was a solid 8 out of 10, which is a definite downgrade from the 10 out of 10 that was the first The Last of Us. Mm-hmm. You know,
But it's a victim of sequelitis, I believe.
it is. But getting back to Fat Dog related stuff, because that's what we were supposed to be covering.
No, we put our time in for random BS otherwise.
Anyhow,
Our weekly time in.
anyhow, so, yeah, gameplay was better in 2. I will absolutely say it was a more fun game to play. The narrative wasn't as strong as it was in the first one. Anyway, so yeah, episode 4 of Shield is out now. We've got reactions to Shield episode 4, and something really funny. There's a person who's reacted to a lot of our content from way back when that just started reacting to Slime, and I was like, wait a minute. They didn't already?
Ooh, neat.
You've never done this? What?
Yeah.
You've never touched on this one? Why?
Mm-hmm.
That's like our big thing.
I think it's Pixel Party Pals has started reacting to slime. It may be because of copyright. Who knows? Anyhow, so yeah, go to the Discord, check out the reaction channel that's in there. Go show those reactors a lot of love because they show us love, and we want to return that love back. All right. Last but not least, Solo Leveling, Episode 2. I'm having Cody look at the final version of what we've got scripted.
Mhm.
I did let him know. I was like, there's a chunk of a thing missing. It's not completely finished.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm just going to make an AMV for that part.
Fair enough.
And then I'm going to make Moon yell over it.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, I mean, you know what scene I'm talking about because you're writing it with me. But
Yeah.
like, yeah, there's a lot of yelling that's going to be going. And then I've already started thinking of other ideas for future episodes because my writing brain just won't stop. So Moon, you know the scene I was talking about the drinking, and then we have the flashback, and then we have that stuff?
Yeah.
Okay. So first off, in that version, we're seeing someone else's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to reach out to the Genu from the shorts and get him to
Yeah.
voice this part because it'd be really
Oh.
funny.
Right.
And I've already thought up dialogue. Oh my god. It hurts, but it's funny. It hurts me to type this stuff up personally, but the ideas are funny, and I'm like, damn it.
Mm.
Anyhow, so we're gonna start casting hopefully within a week for Solo Leveling Episode 2,
Mm.
and then get recording in January, hopefully, if things go well. So that's where we're at on that. Looking for we're looking for a new audio engineer to work on Solo Leveling and Konosuba. But the good news, Calvin says he'll be able to work with us on music related stuff. And
Okay, that's good.
I hope
as
he's
soon
doing
as
okay.
I
It's
told
been a while.
Calvin what we were planning on doing for the OP for Solo Leveling, he was like, I already have ideas. And I'm like, yes!
Yes.
Yes. All right. Lastly, I did Moon will appreciate this. I did a very good Christmas service. Early Christmas gifts to Calvin. I did a very good service. I got him the first 4 volumes of T-Bait.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's got like these long commutes, and I'm like, how about some books? And he's like, I love reading. I'm like, all right, cool. Here, have this. I'm like, there you go, man. All right. I've done my due diligence. You guys have interrupted enough. Are we good to start reading?
I think
I'm
so.
good. What about you guys?
I'm never happy.
I wasn't
mean, we
asking
already
you.
knew
I was
that.
asking. I was talking to the other two.
I'm ready.
Sounds good.
I'm only weak when I'm happy. Oh, I'm never happy.
Oh,
Oh,
All right. Here we go. Those who've known defeat are all the stronger for it. It takes some guts to never get a job, actually. Author, Rudius Greyrat. Translation, Jean R.F. Maggot. Maggot! I had to do it one time. I'm sure
Of
it's
course.
like Mago or something like that, but I just see Maggot.
yeah.
And
That's
then
fine.
I
Hold on,
immediately
let me see
think
if
of
I
the
can't find
I
that.
immediately think of the
Yep.
soldier from TF2.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Maggot! So there we go. Chapter 1, The Holy Country of Millis. My name's Rudius Greyrat. I was a grown man in my previous life, but in my current incarnation, I'm an 11-year-old pretty boy. Magic is my field of expertise. I can cast customized spells without the need for an incantation, a trick that's earned me quite a bit of recognition. About a year and a half ago, I was teleported to a friendly place known as the Demon Continent, thanks to a large scale magical disaster. Unfortunately, the Demon Continent happens to be on the other side of the planet from my homeland, the Fatoa region of the Kingdom of Asura. Getting back was going to require traveling halfway around the world. I promptly became an adventurer and began the long, hard trek back home. 18 months have passed since then. In that time, I made my way across the Demon Continent, and now I'm past the Great Forest as well. Milishion is the capital of the holy country of Milis. Approaching it from the Holy Sword Highway offers travelers a spectacular view of the city in its entirety. First, your eyes will be drawn to Grand Lake, a brilliant blue body of water fed by the Nautilus River, which flows down from the Blue Worm Mountains. At the lake's very center, the great white palace seems to float above its waters. Further, along the banks of the Nicholas, I'm going with Nicholas. That seems to be the closest approximation. You'll spot two other distinctive landmarks: the city's radiant golden cathedral and the shining silver headquarters of the Adventurers Guild. The city that surrounds these remarkable buildings is laid out as neatly as the squares on a sheet of grid paper. As its outer edges, at its outer edges, you'll notice 7 imposing towers with vast green plains stretched out beyond them. This is a place not only rich in majesty, but also in perfect harmony with nature. No other city in the world is nearly as beautiful. Excerpt from Wandering the World by the adventurer Bloody Kant.
I didn't realize this was a nature documentary.
It's Kant. You guys can't get me in trouble. Even though, yes, it does sound exactly the way you're thinking.
Oh, I was trying to give you it out there, just like, let's not focus on that. Let's focus on the other thing before that. And then move on.
All right. Now, this was the sort of city you'd expect to find in a fantasy world. I'd never seen a major metropolis with this much blue and green before, and the streets were laid out in a beautifully clean grid reminiscent of Sapporo or Old Edo. The sight of it moved me in a way looking at Rikarisu never had. It was beautiful. Oh, wow. The girl sitting next to me, currently gaping open-mouthed at the view, was named Eris. Eris Boreas Greyrat, to be precise. She was the granddaughter of Soros, Lord of Fatoa. For some time, I'd served as her personal tutor. Eris was extremely ferocious by nature. While she usually did what I told her, she was the kind of girl who'd punch a president in the face if they ticked her off badly enough. The mere mention of sailing ships was enough to make her cringe, though. She was prone to terrible seasickness. The fair-skinned guy with the shaved head, also gazing at the city in admiration, was our demon companion, Regerd Spurdia. You couldn't tell at the moment, but his natural hair color was a vivid shade of emerald. It was a trait he had in common with every other member of the infamous Spurred race. To most people in his world, green-haired demons were synonymous with death and destruction. But while Regerd could definitely be dangerous and impulsive at times, he was basically a kind old guy with a soft spot for kids as far as Eris and I was concerned. Or were concerned. I'd never thought of these two as particularly romantic people, but apparently they could recognize a beautiful thing when it hit them in the face. This is definitely geese. It's really something, isn't it? The last member of our little group was a man named Geese, who bore a strong resemblance to a monkey. Geese was an adventurer by trade and a good for nothing at heart. The sort of guy who got himself thrown into jail for cheating at gambling. He wasn't a member of our party or anything, but he'd asked to tag along with us to Millis, so we'd been traveling together since the Great Forest. I would have asked him why he was bragging about this place as if he'd built it, but it was understandable how, now that I'd seen the view. I would have done the exact same thing in his shoes. Yes, it's certainly something, but the lake is huge. Doesn't that cause all sorts of headaches during the rainy season? I was just being contrarian, honestly. I didn't want him getting too smug. Still, I really had been wondering about this. That lake was at the very center of the city, and in the Great Forest just north of here, they got 3 months straight of torrential rain every single year. Surely that had some effect on the weather here as well. I hear it was a real nuisance way back in the day, sure, Geese replied. But now, they've got the weather totally under control thanks to those 7 magic towers. No way they'd drop a castle in the middle of a lake otherwise. You notice how it doesn't have any other outer walls or anything? That's because the towers have protected it with a magic barrier. No kidding. So, you'd have to take those towers down first if you wanted to capture the city, huh? Don't even joke about that. The Holy Knights would toss you in jail if they overheard. Got it. I'll be careful. Geese went on to explain that so long as the 7 towers stood, the capital was safe from natural disasters and even disease epidemics. I couldn't imagine how that worked, but it sure sounded convenient. Come on, let's go already! Urged on by an excited heiress, our carriage began rolling forward once again. The city of Milicione was divided into 4 districts. To the north was the residential district, where most of the blocks were lined with family homes. There were some differences between the areas where common folk lived and those where the families of nobles and knights resided, but virtually every building in this district was a house of some sort. To the east, you had the commercial district, where most of the city's major businesses were located. You could find some retail shops here, but they tended to be small-scale operations. The district was mostly dominated by larger enterprises. This was where you could find Milicione's blacksmiths and auction houses. To the south was the Adventurers District, with the guild headquarters at its center. It was full of inns, bars, and shops catering to professional fortune seekers. It also had quite a few gambling halls and slums where failed adventurers lived, though, so you had to watch yourself. For whatever reason, the city's slave market was located here instead of in the commercial district. To the west was the Divine District, home to many of the Millis Church's ranking members. You could find the city's enormous cathedral here, as well as a spacious graveyard. The Holy Knights of Millis were also headquartered here. Geese went over all of this for us in surprising detail as we drew closer to the gates. We ended up circling around the outskirts of Milicione before entering the Adventurers District. According to Geese, outsiders entered through a different district were typically viewed with some suspicion and subjected to more lengthy inspections. This city had some annoying quirks from the sound of things. The moment we passed through the gates, we found ourselves surrounded by chaos. Milicione looked gorgeous from a distance, to be sure, but it didn't feel that different from any other city on the inside. There were stables and cheap inns clustered near the city entrance. A little further along, merchants running open-air stalls hawked their wares loudly to the crowd. I could see weapon shops even further along the central avenue. Presumably, you'd find slightly nicer inns down the quieter side streets. Also, the shining silver guild headquarters was large enough to be visible right from the gates. First off, we dropped off our carriage at a nearby stable. As it turned out, they were willing to deliver our luggage to the inn of our choice for no extra charge. That had never been an option in any other town we'd visited, but in a big city like this, I guess you needed to distinguish yourself from the crowd if you wanted to survive as a business. Once we'd wrapped up at the stable, Geese turned to us and made an abrupt announcement. All right then, folks. I know where I'm headed next, so I guess this is goodbye. Huh? You're leaving already? That was a little surprising. I'd been expecting him to tag along to the inn with us at least. What's the matter, boss? You gonna miss me? Well, yeah, of course. I knew Geese was just teasing, but I responded honestly. We hadn't known each other very long, but he definitely wasn't a bad guy. A traveling companion you get along with was a valuable thing on long journeys like this. He'd made my life a lot less stressful for a while. Not to mention, with him gone, our meals were going to be a lot less flavorful from now on. That seriously sucked. Ah, don't be blue, boss. We'll probably run into each other around town one of these days, you know? With a small shrug, Geese reached down and patted me on the head, but as he turned to leave, Eris blocked his path. Listen up, Geese! She'd assumed her trademark pose, arms folded, chin jutting into the air. You better teach me how to cook next time, got it? The answer's still no, little lady. Talk about persistent. Scratching the back of his head, Geese slipped past Eris, then glanced over at Regard. Hey, you take care of yourself too, Chief. Good luck to you as well. Don't get up to too much mischief, all right? Yeah, I hear you. With a little wave, Geese finally walked off into the crowd. Talk about a casual goodbye. You never would have known we'd spent 2 whole months on the road together. Oh, right. One last thing, boss. Just before he was about to disappear from view, the familiar monkey face turned back toward me for a moment. Don't forget to stop by the Adventurers Guild soon, okay? Sure. We'd be going to the guild eventually since we'd need to earn some money, but why was he bringing that up now? I didn't get the chance to ask any follow-up questions. As soon as he heard my reply, Geese disappeared into the crowd. Geese, you should have told him to go first thing. Our immediate priority at the moment was finding an inn. This was always our first order of business whenever we reached a new city. Most of the inns in Milition seemed to be located some distance away from the main avenues, so we ended up wandering through the side streets for a while until we found a little cluster of them. After a quick look around, I settled on a place called Dawn's Light Inn. The place wasn't too close to the city's main streets, but it was a good distance away from the slums. The area seemed safe enough. It offered all the amenities I was looking for and seemed to be priced to attract C or B ranked adventurers. The main downside was that it didn't seem to get too much sun, but I could live with that. Once we had our room, the next stop was to unpack and get ourselves organized, after which we'd head out to visit the town's most important locations, particularly the local guild. If there was any time, we'd engage in some idle sightseeing, then head back to our inn from a team meeting. That was our standard routine at this point, at any rate. Couldn't we have stayed at a cheaper place? Asked Eris, looking around the inn quizzically. I had to admit she did have a point, especially since I was always lecturing her and Regard about being careful with our money. At the moment, however, we had some financial breathing room. We'd been paid well for the 3 months we spent on guard duty in Doldia, and the beast folks' head warrior, Gis, had also given us a nice chunk of change. Those funds added up to a bit more than 7 millis gold coins. We'd have to earn more money here eventually, but in the short term, we could afford a few modest luxuries. Can't hurt to upgrade every once in a while, right? Sometimes it's nice to sleep in a bed that's actually soft. A quick glance over at Eris suggested she wasn't entirely convinced. I went ahead and opened the door to our room anyway. It was it was a neat, tidy little space. I appreciated that they'd already provided us with a table and chairs in the far corner. The door had a functional lock and the windows came with shutters. It wasn't quite comparable to the business hotels back in Japan, but by the standards of this world, this was definitely on the nicer side. Now that we'd reached our room, we had a few things to take care of. First, our equipment needed its regular maintenance. Second, we needed to take stock of our expendable supplies and make note of anything we were running low on. Then it was on to drying out the beds, washing the sheets, and a bit of general sweeping and cleaning. This was all totally routine for the three of us by now, so we got to work without exchanging words. By the time we finished up, the sun was setting and it was getting dark outside. This made sense since we only reached Milicion in the early afternoon. Still, we weren't going to have time to stop by the guild today after all. Not that it really mattered too much. After a quick dinner at the bar next to the inn, the three of us went right back up to our room. Once we'd settled down on the floor in the circle, I cleared my throat and got things underway. All right, I hereby call this dead-end team meeting to order. This is our first meeting since we reached the capital of Millis, everyone. Let's make it one to remember. I had actually said applause, please, and I had to actually say applause, please, and smack my hands together a few times before Eris and Regard hesitantly followed suit. Honestly, those two never failed to disappoint. My God. Why does this feel like Jeb Bush in 2015? Please clap.
Please clap.
Now then, we finally
Yeah.
made it this far, folks. That's a real accomplishment. There was some real emotion in my voice as I said those words. It had been a long, hard slog getting to this point. We'd spent more than a year on the Demon Continent and a good 4 months in the Great Forest. Now, at long last, we'd reached the region of this world where humankind resided. The most dangerous part of our trip was behind us now. From here on out, the roads would be well maintained and the terrain mostly nice and level. Compared to what we'd been through previously, it should be a total cakewalk. Of course, in terms of sheer distance, we still had a very long journey ahead of us. The distance between Osira and Millis was roughly 1/4 of the planet's circumference. No matter how nice the roads were, we weren't going to manage that in a week. In fact, we probably had another solid year of travel ahead of us. Given that our biggest long-term problem would probably be financial in nature. For the moment, I'm thinking we should stick around in this city for a while to save up some money. Why? Asked Eris, furrowing her brow. It was a reasonable question. I tried to answer as clearly as I could. Well, we've made it through the Demon Continent and the Great Forest just fine, but things tend to be much pricier in human territory. I thought back to the market research I'd conducted on our way over here. I never got the chance to poke around at Zantport, but I still remembered what most things went for in various parts of the Demon Continent, and in the small town we stopped at past the Blue Worm Mountains. Pretty much everything across the board was more expensive in Millis in the Kingdom of Osira. This inn's nightly rate would have been completely mind-boggling by the standards of the Demon Continent. Humankind were a greedy bunch, evidently. We cared much more about money than any of the other races did. The value of Millis currency is very high. Only Osiran coins are worth more, as far as I know. That does mean everything is expensive here, but it also means that jobs at the local guilds will pay very well. Instead of stopping for a week at every town like we did on the Demon Continent, I think it's more efficient for us to stay here for about a month and save up lots of cash all at once. Once we had a nice pile of valuable Millis coins in our pockets, the rest of the journey would go much more smoothly. They'd go a long way toward getting us through the southern regions of the central continent. For one thing, we don't know how much they'll charge a spurred for passage on the boat to the central continent, right? I said. Eris grimaced at the word boat. Our previous sea voyage was a miserable memory for her. I felt very differently, of course. My recollection of comforting her while she was seasick continued to be a source of great pleasure. All things considered, I think we should focus on earning money and all things considered, I think we should focus on earning money in Militione for a while, then head straight for the Kingdom of Asura. We might not be able to do much about improving the reputation of the Spurred for a while, though. Is that all right with you, Regard? Of course. Regard replied, nodding slightly. I hadn't really expected him to object. At this point, I was helping out with that because I wanted to. Personally, I would have been happy to settle down here for a while and devote some real effort into changing the public's opinion of his people. 6 months or a year of diligent work in a major city like this could have a far reaching impact. That said, we'd already spent a year and a half just making it this far. I didn't want to drag out this marathon of a journey even longer than necessary. I mean, I'd been missing for 18 months now, right? Paul and Zenith were probably worried sick. Wonder what they're up to right now. Oh, whoops. Never got around to sending them a letter, did I? I kept meaning to do that, but events were constantly conspiring to distract me. It must have slipped my mind half a dozen times by now. Well, no time like the present. Okay then, let's make tomorrow an off day, shall we? This wasn't a new concept for us. I'd announced off days several times in the past. At first, it was out of concern for Eris, but at some point, I started calling them primarily for my own sake. The girl never showed any signs of fatigue, and Regard was the toughest man I knew. I was definitely the weakling of this party. Of course, I was much stronger than I'd ever been in my previous life. I couldn't hold a candle to these two, but I was on the level of a typical adventurer at least. Physical exhaustion wasn't usually an issue. Okay, I'm going to take a pause right here. His whole life view of this world is completely askew. He thinks he's on the level of a typical adventurer. You are out of your fucking mind, Rudius.
Yeah,
I
you get
feel
humbled
like
very fast.
Rudy has no frame of reference. He just does not understand. Like, dude, you are way beyond a typical adventurer. All right. He thinks it's humility. I think it's lack of planning
Yeah,
or lack of understanding. Anyway.
yeah. I mean, well, at this point, doesn't he still view the whole world as like a game? Still, or am I
Uh,
wrong?
I think you're wrong. It's not a game at this
Upcoming,
point.
maybe.
Yeah, that's right. I think he found that out when somebody actually fucking died, and then he was like, "Oh shit."
He's
Oh yeah, when Regard
he's
murdered
past
someone
that
right in
part.
front of him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, not just that, but also those kids, the Tokurabu
Yeah,
toughs.
yeah,
When that
yeah.
happened,
Who got
that's
fucking
where it
marked
really
by the
sucked.
snake,
Right.
or murked by the snake? Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Mental exhaustion, on the other hand, that was a different story. For one thing, I still had some hang-ups about killing living things. The more we went around slaughtering monsters, the more stress built up inside me. I wasn't calling this particular off day out of fatigue, though. I just wanted to make sure I didn't forget about writing that letter again. If we spent tomorrow gathering information, checking out the guild job list, and dealing with all the other things on our to-do list, it was going to slip my mind yet again. This time I was going to take a day and finally get this taken care of. Are you feeling poorly again, Rudius? No, this one's a little different. I need to take some time to write a letter. A letter? I nodded at Eris. We should let everyone back home know that we're okay, right? Well, all right. I guess I'll leave that to you then. Yeah, I'll take care of it. Tomorrow, I was finally going to get this done. I'd take my time, think back to my days in Buena Village, and write to both Paul and Sylphie. Back when he shipped me off to serve as Eris' tutor, Paul warned me not to send him any letters, but under these circumstances, surely he wouldn't mind. The odds of a letter reaching them weren't that good, of course, back when Roxy and I were corresponding between Asura and Shirone, or Chiron. I don't know how it's pronounced. I honestly, I'm thinking about this because it was a Japanese author, and I'm like, is it Shirone or Chiron? My
Shirone, probably.
Shirone. Sorry.
Yeah.
All right, but I'm guessing Chiron. I really
Yeah.
do need to listen to the audiobook for this so I can know what the frick. It felt like maybe 1 in every 7 letters we sent actually got through, so we always had to send out multiple copies of the same message. I'd have to do the same this time as well. What will the two of you be doing, by the way? I asked. Eris replied promptly and energetically, I'm going to slay some goblins. Goblins? Goblins! All right, sorry, I had to do it. Wait, goblins? Are these the goblins I'm familiar with? Like yellow green eyes, maybe half the size of a human, with crude clubs? The ones that always feature prominently in fantasy-themed porn games? My dude. Why? All right, anyway, yep. I overheard someone saying they've got lots of them popping up around here. That's exactly the sort of thing adventurers should be dealing with, right? Eris replied cheerfully. To be perfectly honest, I'd heard a bit about them on our journey. God damn it, Rudy. Yeah, I agree.
No.
You're not wrong.
It's
God
no.
damn it,
pronounced-
Rudy! Like that?
There you go.
All right,
That's
yeah,
it.
yeah.
That's the one.
I'll put in the proper inflection. We're good. I don't just direct. I also act. All right, anyway.
Yes.
To be perfectly honest, I'd heard a bit about them on our journey. In this world, goblins were basically thought of as a kind of vermin. They reproduced rapidly and caused all sorts of trouble for people. They were intelligent enough to communicate verbally, so they might technically be classified as demon kind, but the vast majority of them lived in like wild animals. So when their numbers started getting out of hand, they'd typically be exterminated. All right then, Regard, can you go along with her and... Oh, come on! I can handle a few goblins on my own, Eris interrupted indignantly. The look on her face suggested she was more than a little offended. What was I supposed to do here? Eris was a very competent fighter, and goblins were E-ranked monsters, not exactly a challenging foe. They didn't live on the demon continent, so I'd never actually seen one. But from what I'd heard, even a child who'd learned some basic swordplay could handle them, no sweat. Maybe it would be slightly overprotective to have her take our bodyguard along. After all, the girl could handle herself just fine against even B-ranked monsters. But still, when a girl adventurer gets beaten by a goblin, that's an instant sex slave bad end, right? I didn't know that much about the goblins in this world, but that was definitely their whole deal back in mine. And I mean, if I was the lucky goblin who managed to knock Eris unconscious, I'd certainly enjoy myself, wouldn't anyone? Assuming they were a little green monster, of course. I totally would, just hypothetically. If something that terrible happened to Eris the moment I took my eyes off her, I'd never be able to face Ghislaine or Philip ever again. And then here we have the stupid Rudy is thinking about the horny goblin thing. Yeah.
I feel like I should just record a sound clip of me just like that line and like, God damn it, Rudy, and just send it off, and just every time we needed to, we just play it.
It's all right, Rudius, said Regard, snapping me out of my reverie. Let her handle this one alone. That was unusual. Normally, he stayed out of these sorts of arguments. For the last year and a half, Regard had been giving Eris lessons on how to fight all sorts of different monsters and enemies. His educational methods were a little too obscure for me to follow, but she'd clearly learned a great deal from him. If he was so convinced she could do this, it was probably going to be all right. Okay, then. Don't get careless out there just because they're weak, Eris. Yeah, I know. Make sure you're well prepared before you head out, too. Of course! If things get dicey, just turn tail and run, all right? Right, okay. And if worst comes to worst, just grab the little creep by the head and scream, "This goblin's a molester!" at the top of your... Oh, enough already! I can deal with exterminating some goblins, Rudius. Whoops, now I'd gone and made her mad. To be honest, I was still a little anxious about this, but I just have to put my faith in the judgment of our veteran warrior. In that case, I'll say no more. Good luck out there, Eris. Thanks, she said, nodding in satisfaction. Don't worry, I've got this. I feel her pointing at herself in the hero pose or whatever.
Oh, the
That's-
thumb. Yeah.
Yeah, with the thumb. You knew exactly what I was talking about. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Famous last words.
Yeah. How about you, Richard? What will you be up to tomorrow? I think I'll go say hello to an acquaintance of mine. That had to be the first time I'd ever heard him use the word acquaintance. You don't say. I didn't know you had any of those, actually. Well, of course I do. From what I knew of his backstory, Richard had been wandering the wilderness all by his lonesome for quite some time. But after 500 years of that, I guess he'd probably run into a few people just by chance. It seemed a little strange that one of those people would be living all the way out here in Milicione. Then again, this was a huge city, so maybe it made sense statistically. What kind of person are they? A warrior. Ah, probably someone he rescued in the wilds of the demon continent back in the day or something, huh? Well, one way or another, I wasn't about to pry. I wasn't Richard's father and didn't feel the need to interrogate him on who he was hanging out with his free time. All right, there we go. We've finally got some differentiation between the light novel and the anime. As far as the biggest difference that we're going to have right now is like what Richard did on the day off.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be the big thing.
Yeah, because Eris had the whole. It was like a mini episode, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was like a side episode, like an OVA.
Yeah,
thing,
yeah.
Right?
Kinda,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Okay. The next morning, Eris and Richard headed out on their respective errands, and I went out into town to buy paper, pens, and ink. I figured I could take the chance to wander around the open-air stalls for a while until I had a decent sense for what most things cost in Millis. As it turned out, food was actually a good bit cheaper than it was on the Demon Continent. Naturally, the selection was also much, much better. There was plenty of fresh meat and fish available, and they even had a nice range of vegetables. The biggest single surprise was definitely the eggs, though. There were lots of them. They were all freshly laid, and they were incredibly cheap. I'd seen eggs for sale a few times in the Demon Continent, but those were laid by monsters rather than birds. The idea was to make them hatch, let the baby creature imprint on you, and then train it as you liked. Naturally, nobody ate these things. They were way too expensive to turn into an omelet. Chickens were a thing in this world, by the way. There have been a few people who raised them back in Buena Village, and from the looks of things, poultry was a major industry in Millis as well. All of a sudden, I was dying to eat egg on rice again. I know, pretty basic stuff, but come on, it's nutritionally complete meal all in itself. Sadly, while I had plenty of eggs available to me at the moment, there didn't seem to be any rice or soy sauce to go with them. Bread was apparently the cornerstone of the Millis diet, just like it was in Asura. Rice didn't exist in this world, even if it wasn't for sale in the market here. Oh, sorry. Rice did exist in this world, even if it wasn't for sale in the market here. It was the staple food in the northern and eastern regions of the central continent, and Roxy once mentioned that it was available in the kingdom of Sharon as well. They mostly used it as the base for something like fried rice or paella, with lots of meat, vegetables, and seafood. Unfortunately, it sounded like they didn't do poultry farming in Sharon, so eggs were supposedly a rare commodity. Maybe the climate wasn't suitable for raising chickens. As for soy sauce, I'd never seen anything like it in this world. I once noticed something that looked a lot like a soybean, while paging through a dictionary of plants, but it seemed possible that nobody had tried fermenting them and making them into sauce yet. No, no, can't let myself get pessimistic. There were eggs and rice here, right? In that case, there had to be soy sauce out there somewhere, too. I just needed to look hard enough. Someday I'd collect all the ingredients and make my dream come true, even if the eggs were a bit unsanitary. Detoxifying magic can handle a little food poisoning just fine. Once I'd finished up with my quick yawn. Once I'd finished up with my quick survey of the local market and purchased a basic stationery set, I started to make my way back toward the inn while trying to figure out exactly what to put in this letter. This was going to be the first time I'd ever written to Paul or Sylphie. Should I start with my years in the Boreas household? Nah, the important thing was to let them know I was safe. Better to begin with our teleportation to the demon continent. Come to think of it, I had a lot to tell them about. I'd started traveling with a legendary spurred warrior, met the great demon empress, and even spent 3 whole months in a beastfolk village. Were they even going to believe any of that? I'd tell them the truth either way, of course, but it seemed unlikely that anyone back home would buy my story about receiving a magical demon eye from Kishirika Kishirisu herself. Speaking of beast folk, it'd be nice to know if Ghislaine was all right. She'd presumably been whisked off to some random corner of the globe, too, assuming she didn't get dropped in the middle of a volcano or something. I had to think she was safe. The woman was a force of nature, after all. How many other people were teleported anyway? The wall of light came from the citadel of Roa, so it seemed possible everyone in the Boreas estate had suffered the same fate as Eris and me. That would be Philip, Soros, Hilda, Alphonse the butler, and all the maids to boot. I felt like old man Soros could bellow his way through life just fine no matter where he ended up, but still... Yeah, now I've got myself worried. Muttering to myself, I turned onto a narrow side street. Milicione had quite a few of these, as it turned out. The city layout looked neat and clean at a distance, but the old buildings were knocked down and replaced. Dingy little alleys like this tended to open up between them. Of course, everything was still aligned on a grid, so you didn't have to worry about getting lost in some winding maze. That was why I decided to take a different route back to the inn. It couldn't hurt to explore the city's streets a bit. If I got lucky, I might stumble across some charming little lover's lane or something. Our redhead had something of a violent personality, but it seemed like she was capable of appreciating a bit of beauty now and then. And if we stayed in the city a whole month, we'd probably have time for a date or two. I could earn myself a few bonus affection points if I found some nice spots to take her. Just as I was getting lost in thought, I noticed a group of 5 or so men moving quickly toward me from the other side of the alley. They didn't look like adventurers at a glance, but more like common street punks. Their outfits seemed intended to intimidate. Just a bunch of rowdy kids, probably. Still, it was kind of rude of them. Kind of rude to spread themselves across a cramped little alley like this. The polite pedestrian always left room for someone heading the other way. A kid like me didn't need that much space, true, but at this rate we were going to run into each other. They really ought to be approaching me single file and averting their eyes out of... Move it, kid! I instantly pressed myself against the alley wall. Don't get me wrong now. I just wanted to avoid any senseless squabbling. I mean, they seemed to be in a very big hurry, and I wasn't. In a very big hurry, and I wasn't. It's not like I got out of their way because they looked kind of scary or anything. Really, I promise. I ain't scared of no delinquents. Cross my heart and hope to die. Think about it anyway. You can't judge a book by its cover, right? They did look like a bunch of street punks, but for all I knew, one of them was actually some famous master swordsman. If I'd gotten overconfident and objected to their rudeness, I might have found myself getting sliced to pieces by the nobleman of fury, or something. I mean, this was a world where a little girl on the verge of starving in the street could turn out to be a great demon empress, right? No reason to get in a fight over nothing. That was my initial conclusion, at least, but as they shoved past me, I noticed that two guys in the middle of the group were carrying a burlap sack, and there was a small hand sticking out of it. It seemed like they were carrying off a kid inside the bag, no less. Again with the kidnappers? This world had an ample supply of those. If nothing else, criminals were always snatching up children every chance they got. It wasn't a regional issue either. It happened everywhere, from the kingdom of Asura to the demon continent, the great forest, and the holy country of Millis. From what Geese told me, kidnapping tended to be a very profitable line of work. The world was mostly at peace right now, with the exception of a few minor conflicts here and there. A few slaves did trickle onto the market from the central and northern regions of the central continent, but that was about it. And many, many people wanted slaves. That was particularly true of the richer countries like Milis and Asura, where the wealthy upper classes were constantly looking to buy people. Basically, the supply just wasn't large enough to meet demand. Kidnapping victims fetch high prices on the market, and as long as this was true, the issue was never going to go away. To eliminate the practice entirely, you'd apparently have to start a massive war or two. In any case, what now? Given the number of men, we were probably talking about a premeditated crime. It wouldn't be surprising if the kid in the bag was the son or daughter of someone relatively prominent in these parts. To be honest, I didn't really want to get mixed up in this. The last time I rescued children from a gang of kidnappers, I ended up being taken for one of the criminals and tossed into a jail cell. And that was only a few months ago, so the memory was still painfully fresh. Was I going to just leave the kid to his fate then? No, no, of course not. There'd always be kidnappers out there, to be sure, and this was bringing back some unpleasant memories, but none of that justified looking the other way. The first rule of Team Dead End was never abandon a child in peril, and the second rule of Team Dead End was never, ever abandon a child in peril. And the third rule of Team Dead End is you don't talk about Team Dead End. Dead End was a team of good guys. We stood steadfast in the face of evil. We rescued children every chance we got, and little by little, we spread the good word about Regerd and the Spurred. I turned back and quietly followed the five men with the burlap sack. I am having so much trouble reading right now. Holy cow. My dyslexia is on full display.
Oh,
Shem, take over. I can't do this.
okay. Let me see.
Um,
Again, with the hold on.
Page 33, 10% through.
I see it.
My sneaking skills.
Yeah, my sneaking skills had apparently leveled up at some point. I guess following Eris and company around in Doldia was good practice. The kidnappers reached and entered their destination, a nondescript warehouse without so much as a glance in my direction. Pretty sloppy bunch. They obviously needed to improve their sense of smell, for one thing. The warehouse in question was located in a quiet corner of the Adventures District, tucked away even further from the crowds and the inn we were staring at. You couldn't see this place from the street. The only way to reach it was by squeezing through a narrow alleyway. There was no way a horse-drawn carriage could get to it. It wouldn't even be possible to carry anything bulky out. I wonder why the hell anyone would put a storage facility in such an inaccessible location. The warehouse had probably been built sometime before the buildings that now surrounded it. Sometimes the city planners can really screw you over, huh? Not that it really mattered. Once I felt confident that the group wasn't just stopping by, I moved around to the back of the building and used earth magic to float off the ground, which allowed me to slip into the building through a relatively high window. I lowered myself to the floor, crept over to a jumbled stack of wooden boxes, hid inside one, then cautiously peered out to get the lay of the land. The five kidnappers were standing around on the other side of the dimly lit warehouse, talking things over. From what I could gather, they had lots of friends drinking in the bar next door, and somebody needed to go inform them that the job was taken care of. I had two basic options at this point. I could try to take these five out before they brought the whole gang over here, or I could stay put, get a careful look at their buddies' faces, and just sneak out with the kid when I got the chance. The latter approach sounded much more appealing, So I decided to settle into my box and get comfy. What was in this thing anyway? Thanks to the poor lighting, I hadn't really gotten a good look at its contents. Whatever they were definitely made of cloth. Too small to be shirts or pants, though. And for some reason, lying in a pile that made me feel oddly tranquil. I reached out and took one in my hand. The shape and texture of it was familiar. A carefully sewn piece of fabric with some definite depth and 3 distinct holes. In one particular section, the cloth was twice as thick. Thought I could sense a tinge of powerful mystic energy when I touched that bit. Whoa, hold on. These are panties. Who's there? Oh, crap, they heard me. Damn it, I never expected them to lay such a devilish trap. What the hell? Is there someone in the boxes? Show yourself. Hey, go tell the boss. We need everyone over here. Well, this definitely wasn't good. While I sat around, they were already calling in the cavalry. It was clearly time for a change in plans. I just have to grab the kid now and make a quick getaway, right? Seemed like the best option. Wait, no. You'd see my face. What was I thinking? Had a perfectly suitable mask right on hand. Woo! I'm a burning hunk of ecstasy, baby. Just kidding. For a moment, I paused to consider stripping off my robe to better hide my identity, but then I remembered I wasn't even wearing it. Didn't have my staff either. I'd just been on a shopping trip after all. All right, then. Let's roll. Whoa! He's wearing panties on his head, man. What a freak. The men were momentarily dumbfounded by my sudden dramatic appearance. I took the opportunity to launch into a monologue. Hear me, greedy miscreants. How dare you tear innocent children from their families? Shame on you. Shame. People call this kidnapping. The audience didn't seem to appreciate my Rom Stoll impression. Maybe they weren't up to on their old mecha anime. Who the hell are you supposed to be? I am Ruichard of Dead End. What? Dead End? Oh crap, I messed up. Introducing myself that way was pure habit by now, so the words just slipped out of my mouth. This was one case where I really shouldn't have said anything. Sorry, Weejard. As of today, you're a creepy weirdo who rescues children while wearing panties on your head. Don't worry, though. I will save the kid, no matter what the cost. Curse you, foul kidnappers! Thanks to you, an innocent man has just been badly slandered. Your villainy won't go unpunished. Look, kid, go place hero somewhere else. We ain't. I didn't come here to talk, you fool. Sunrise attack! Gah! I cut the conversation short by firing off a stone cannon spell. It was always nice to get a few preemptive attacks in. This was the same approach I'd used to rescue the Great Demon Empress from that dirty old pedo back in Windport, actually. Take that! And that! Ugh! Ugh! In the blink of an eye, I knocked out the 4 men who had remained in the warehouse. Once they were all down, I hurried over to check on their captive. Are you all right, young man? Looks like he's unconscious. I felt like I'd seen this boy somewhere before. There was something really familiar about him, actually. Couldn't quite put my finger on it, though. Weird. Well, whatever. This was no time to be thinking about it. I needed to get out of here before the rest of the gang arrived. But even as that thought ran through my head, a whole crowd of men had appeared in the warehouse doorway. Whoa, what the hell? He took down all 4 of them. Kid knows how to fight. Yeah, the captain over here pronto. He's been drinking a lot today, you know. He's still one hell of a fighter, even when he's plastered. 2 men turned and ran off, presumably to get their captain. That still left more than 10 people for me to deal with, and now I had to assume more reinforcements would be coming. This was not good. This is not good at all. Maybe I really should have looked the other way, or waited until tomorrow when I could have convinced Reacher to help me out. Charging in solo was definitely a mistake. At this point, my only option was to take down the entire gang. What kind of freak is this guy? He's wearing panties on his head. Wait, was he here to steal our underwear? Oh god, is he some kind of sex criminal? Now that I look more closely, there were actually a few, or there was women, okay. Now that I look more closely, there were actually a few women in the group as well. Sorry, Richard. Seriously, I owe you one. With one final apology to the man I'd so deeply wronged, I turned my focus to the task at hand. Fortunately, these thugs were nothing special. They kept rushing at me in a straight line, so it was easy enough to fire off stone cannon before they got too close. They weren't quick enough to dodge my magic, and a single hit was enough to knock most of them unconscious. None of them were even armed. There were no magicians to worry about either. Everything was going better than expected so far. Damn! Can't even get close. What the hell is with this kid? Is he using some sort of magic item? What's taking the captain so long? By the time I'd knocked out maybe half of them, the others started getting visibly agitated. Maybe I'd be able to blast my way out of here without too much trouble after all. The captain will be here soon, everyone. We just have to hold out until then. Well, so much for that. 2 women had appeared in the warehouse doorway. One of them was a warrior clad in a suit of bikini armor. The other was a robed magician. It hadn't taken very long for this wave of reinforcements to arrive, but I guess that wasn't surprising. Their whole gang was apparently drinking next door. The warrior woman was showing off a lot of skin for some reason. I hadn't seen a single fighter on the demon continent dressed nearly so skimpily. She stood out even more in comparison to the magician, who was wearing a perfectly ordinary outfit. Damn, who is this woman? I can't tear my eyes away. I'll keep him busy, Sierra. Cover me. Right. The bikini lady drew the sword at her waist and rushed toward me. Meanwhile, the robed magician in the back took up her staff and, oh crap, bikini lady's breasts were swaying like crazy every time she took a step. Don't let them jiggle that vigorously, girl. They're going to break free. It was honestly bizarre. If nothing else, you'd expect bikini armor to keep your chest firmly in place so it wouldn't cause you any problems in battle. Her whole outfit seemed to serve no practical purpose whatsoever. Oh man, just look at those things go. Right, left, right. They were drawing closer, swaying back and forth. For a moment, they drooped down, then bounced back up towards my yeah. All of a sudden, I noticed the bikini lady was swinging her sword directly at my face. Yeah. Tumbling reflexively backward, I managed to avoid the strike by a hair's breadth. I was close. Damn it, this girl fights dirty. Was she wearing that thing as a deliberate distraction? At this point, I noticed a faint voice mumbling something from across the room. Words were thou wilt and issue forth a single pure stream thereof. Oh crap! That was a magical incantation. Someone was about to shoot a wireball at me. Thinking fast, I extended my hand in the general direction of the magician. My spell was of choice this time was stone wall. The best way to ward off a water-based magic spell was to get some nice absorbent sand and dirt in its way. As I rushed to cast the spell, I quickly glanced over and found the magician pointing her staff straight at me, just about to launch her attack. In that very instant, she fired off her fireball. My stone wall rose up to meet it. The high-speed projectile burst against it with an ear-splitting bang, rather than a splash. Water sprayed in every direction all across the warehouse. What? What was that? From the sound of things, I got my magician pretty flustered, so I turned my attention back to the bikini lady. Ah! The force from her attack had left her breasts swinging wildly through the air. It looked like they were on the verge of breaking free. I could almost see them. Yeah! Finally, or pulled back to reality at the last moment by her piercing battle cry, I managed to roll to safety again. This time, I'd put some more distance between us before jumping to my feet. The bikini lady glared at me, her sword still against the floor where it struck. Stop scuttling around like a cockroach, you little pervert. As she spoke, she raised her weapon again, holding it steadily above waist level. She seemed to have given up on on overwhelming me with speed and aggression. Instead, she began to close the distance between us slowly but steadily. Following her lead, I inched backward to ooh. When she held her sword out like that, her upper arms pushed her bazongas together. That was some impressive cleavage. All right, come on. Stop falling under traps, stupid. I couldn't keep my eyes open on her damn sword. How was I supposed to fight in this condition? Oh, neither the warrior nor her magician buddy were especially talented, to be honest. But at this rate, I was never going to take them down. God help me if she were to suffer a critical wardrobe malfunction. I'd probably be cut to pieces instantly. How had they learned of my one and only weakness? Who sold me out, damn it? Okay, calm down. I was just distracting myself here. Simple as that. This wasn't some deliberate tactic on her part. The question was, what was I going to do about it? If I wanted to turn this into a fair fight, I needed to get her to cover her chest somehow, and her pleasantly plump behind as well, for that matter. How could I manipulate her into putting some actual clothes on? Maybe I could could say something to try to get her embarrassed. No. If she had chosen this outfit deliberately, that approach might backfire. Of course! Now I had it! Are you familiar with the story of the North Wind and the Sun, everyone? Once upon a time, the North Wind and the Sun competed to see which of them could impel a certain traveler to undress. The North Wind tried to blow off her clothes with cold, piercing gusts, but the traveler simply piled on extra layers of clothing instead. The Sun, however, simply warmed her up until she started taking off her clothes on her own volition. In other words, if I made things nice and hot in here, she'd totally strip off that. No, no, no. That's exactly what we don't want, remember? Right, cold. Cold was what we needed here. You've got nowhere left to run, called the woman warrior. I glanced behind me and realized I'd backed myself all the way against the warehouse wall. It wasn't a problem, though. I'd already worked out my strategy. Without a word, I held out both my palms toward my skimpily attired assailant. Ice cold field. The moment I channeled my magical energy through my right hand, bitterly cold air rushed out of nowhere to fill the warehouse. The temperature dropped by 30 degrees centigrade almost instantly. All of a sudden, it was like we were standing inside of a refrigerator. What the? I could already see goosebumps on the bikini lady's upper arms, and I wasn't done yet. This time, I let my magic energy course through my left hand. Blast! A great gust of wind sent the woman flying backwards. By the time she'd stopped tumbling, I'd sent her all the way to the entrance of the warehouse. I was thinking I'd call this little combination spell Polar Blast. Achoo! The air in here was so frigid now that I felt like I might catch a cold myself, but I achieved what I had set out to do perfectly. Shivering and sneezing, the bikini armor woman frantically gestured to her friends for a coat. I was out of the woods now. Once those breasts were hidden from view, there was no way she'd get the better of me. All that was left now was to knock everybody senseless and make my getaway. I'm here, people. Or, I'm here, people. Sorry to keep you waiting. Or so I thought, until my newest
Yeah, you
challenger
suck.
barged in. The man in the doorway looked familiar. Something about his face actually made me feel kind of nostalgic. I'd seen this guy somewhere before, right? But where? Wasn't coming to me. This little punk's made a real nuisance of himself, huh? Stay back, everyone. No reason to gang up on some snot-nosed kid. I'll take him down personally. The man was obviously confident in his skills, but it also looked like he might be drunk. Even from a distance, I could see him swaying unsteadily, and his face was tinged red. Seriously, though, the more I looked at this guy, the more familiar he seemed. The brown hair and the slightly thuggish face kind of resembled Paul. Come to think of it, he sounded a lot like him, too. Yeah, you put Paul on a starvation diet and didn't let him get a good night's sleep for a couple months, he'd probably end up looking something like this. It made me kind of hesitant to launch any serious attacks against the guy. But of course, there was no way my father would actually be hanging around with a bunch of kidnappers in Millis, of all places. Hey, you! You think you can just waltz in here and knock my people around, huh? Well, I'm gonna make you live to regret it. The man stepped in front of his group, spat a few fiery words in my direction, and drew a pair of swords from their sheaths. Anyone capable of dual wielding competently had to be a master swordsman. From his stance alone, I got the distinct feeling he was on a totally different level from the bikini armor lady. Was Stone Cannon going to be enough to deal with him? I don't really want to use anything that might kill the guy, though. Perhaps sensing my hesitation, the man abruptly charged forward. What? He'd taken me a bit off guard, but I managed to fire a belated stone cannon spell. The man reacted instantly, turning the sword in his right hand diagonally to deflect the projectile. Water god style, huh? That's not all I got to offer, buddy. He was almost on top of me now. Acting on sheer reflex, I set off a shockwave and sent myself flying backward through the air. Ha! Whoa! I activated my Eye of Foresight to peek into the future to help me dodge his follow-up attacks. The man was quick with his swords, but his footwork seemed a bit sloppy. It was probably related to all the alcohol in his system. Maybe I could do this after all. He moves just like the kid, damn it. Vera, Shira, come lend me a hand. Just like that, the bikini armor lady and her magician stepped forward again. What happened to taking me down by yourself, huh? What kind of man are you, anyway? The woman warrior, now all covered in an overcoat, circled around to my side, and the magician was already starting to chant another incantation. This was definitely not good. The man's attacks were fierce and persistent, and I had my hands full just dodging them all. Fortunately, I still had a trick or two up my sleeves. What? Ugh! Using the vocal magic of the beast folk, I stopped the man in his tracks for just an instant, giving me time to send him flying with a quick shockwave. Stone cannon! Keeping one eye on the man as he tumbled backwards, I fired off a quick offensive spell at the female magician. Next, just as the bikini armor lady was swinging her sword at me, I used my Eye of Foresight to evade the strike and land a solid counterpunch. The magician had been focusing on her incantation. My spell hit her head on and knocked her unconscious. The woman warrior staggered backward, but she wasn't out of the fight yet, judging by the fury in her eyes. And of course, by now, the man was coming right back at me again. Sierra, you'll pay for that one, you little shit! Just as he took a step forward, I transformed the floor underneath him into a tiny patch of muddy swampland. His foot plunged straight into it, and he tumbled clumsily forward onto the floor. Captain! For a moment, the woman warrior's eyes were on him instead of me. Bad idea. Without a word, I fired off another stone cannon straight at her. Uh, Two down, one to go. Viera! God damn it! Shoving one of his swords back into his sheath, the man struck the other one in his mouth. I activated my Eye of Foresight. Man runs at me on all fours. Was this guy a dog or what? I fired off multiple stone cannon spells to keep him away and backed up to put more distance between us. Unfortunately, this warehouse wasn't particularly large. There was no easy way to keep him from closing the gap. Rah! Twisting his body strangely, the man leapt off the ground. He somehow managed to draw the sword at his hip even as he pounced at me like an animal. His attacks came fast and furious. From stances so odd, I never knew what to expect. The man grabs his sword, or the sword's in his mouth, and with his left hand and swings it underhand. What a bizarre move. This guy was defying my expectations at a return. Without the Eye of Foresight, I never would have managed to avoid that last one. As it was, his blade grazed the tip of my nose. The cut tingled painfully. My heart was pounding in my chest. I wasn't trying to kill this man, but he had every intention of taking my life. For some reason, that hadn't really sunk in until this moment. It should have been obvious from the start. If I didn't give this everything I had, I wasn't going to make it out of this warehouse alive. I grit my teeth and lowered myself into a near crouch. I thought back to my training with Reager and Eris. This man's fierce, beast-like style was probably close to the way Reager attacked when he was playing for keeps, but his movements weren't as quick or flawless as Reager's. The weirdness factor was his main advantage. I could do this. Next time he pounced on me, I landed a counterpunch, and at that point, I realized the man had stopped moving. A moment later, I noticed the pair of panties I'd been wearing on my head were now lying on the warehouse floor. Crap, this isn't good. They'd see my face. Is that you? Rudy? Rudy? There was only one man who called me by that name, and that voice wasn't the hoarse rasp of some angry drunkard anymore. Suddenly it sounded like a very familiar one. Father? In the years since I'd last seen him, Paul Greyrat had evidently undergone something of a transformation. His face was gaunt, there were bags under his eyes and stubble on his cheeks. His hair was unkempt and his breath reeked of booze. In basically every respect, my father looked like a total mess. The difference from the man that I remembered was dramatic, to say the least. Oh wow, he looks exactly how he does in the anime. Interesting. Chapter 2, Paul's story. Paul. When I opened my eyes, I found myself in the middle of a grassy plain. It was an unremarkable stretch of flat, empty land, but oddly enough, it felt familiar. I tried to determine where I was, and the answer came to mind before too long. I was in the south of the kingdom of Masura, near a town once spent some time in. It was the place I'd stay back when I was learning the water god style, in Lilia's hometown. Naturally, I concluded this had to be some sort of dream. I had no reason to be here after all. Still, it sure brought back some memories. How many years had I spent in this area? 1? Maybe 2? All I knew for sure was that I hadn't stayed that long. Most of my memories from that period of my life concerned the training hall, and the senior students I trained with there. They were a pack of arrogant idiots with big mouths and no real skill. I actually had talent. So they were always busy trying to keep me in my proper place. I always hated being bossed around like that. The whole reason I ran away from home in the first place was to get out from under my old man's thumb, after all. But he'd at least been a genuinely competent and intimidating man, with enough power to justify his ego. The senior students, on the other hand, were just useless trash with swollen heads. By the time I reached the intermediate rank, they were still lagging in the late stages of their beginner lessons. It was honestly kind of pathetic. Hell, even the master of the training hall had only ever reached the advanced rank in the water god style. He was one of those old coots who'd love to shout about guts and determination, despite the fact they'd never gotten him much of anywhere. I wanted to show every last one of them just how good I really was someday. Never really got the chance, as it turned out. I eventually lost my patience with their bullshit, forced myself on Lilia out of petty spite, and ran away in the night. I'd been looking to get with her for a while, but in that moment, all I wanted was to make a mess of something they all treasured. The next morning, they were all out furiously searching for any trace of me. I fled to a foreign country with a sneer on my face. God, I really was a stupid little shit. I didn't care how much the other students hated me, but taking out my frustration on Lilia like that wasn't exactly my finest hour. The wind was picking up, a bit of dust blew into my eye, and I grimaced slightly. A moment later, there was a small tug at my sleeve. Daddy, where are we? Hmm? For some reason, I was holding Norn in my arms. She was looking at me with anxiety in her eyes. At this point, I finally realized that I was actually standing in the middle of a field in the clothes I wore at home. I could feel solid ground underneath my feet, and the warmth of my daughter's body against my chest. This wasn't a dream. What the heck? I didn't have the first idea what I was doing here. If I'd been alone, I probably would have gone right on believing it was a dream. But Norn was right there in my arms. Yeah, that was a little Norn, all right. My adorable 3-year-old daughter. Didn't hug her like this very often. I was going for more of a stern, dignified father thing, so I mostly kept the physical expressions of affection to a minimum. What was she doing in my arms then? Oh, that's right. Now I remember. Just a few moments ago, I'd been chatting with Zenith in our house. You know, girls stop letting their fathers hug them once they grow up a little. You really should get a few squeezes in while you still can. Or, sorry, that's the daughter, the mom. You know, girls stop letting their fathers hug them once they grow up a little. You really should get a few squeezes in while you still can. Nah, I'm working on my parental dignity this time around. Compared to Rudius, Norn seems like an ordinary kid, right? If I play my cards right, I bet I can convince her I'm the greatest man in the world. Wasn't that your father's approach too? I thought you hated him. You've got a point. All right, let me at her. It was just a silly casual conversation. Lilia was nearby as well, teaching Aisha something or the other. After realizing that the girl was gifted, she decided to nurture her talents through constant lessons and lectures. I argued that Aisha would be happier if we let her have more of a carefree childhood, but Lilia pushed back so ferociously I had to back down. The kid really was growing up fast, though. She started walking at a very early age and absorbed everything we taught her like a sponge. Lilia was a good teacher, so that was probably part of it, but Aisha was making so much progress that it made me worried there might be something wrong with Norn. When I brought up to Lilia, she told me, Aisha's nothing special compared to young Master Rudius, and Miss Norn's a perfectly normal child. I didn't really care if Norn was normal or not, honestly. When I pictured her growing up in the shadow of two brilliant siblings, it made me feel a little bad for her. I remember thoughts like those running through my mind, and then I was suddenly enveloped in a blinding white light. Yeah, I remember now. There wasn't some sort of gap in my memory. The fact that I still had Norms in my arms was proof of that. The girl had been walking around on her own for some time now, but I was holding her to my chest. Something very strange was going on. That much was immediately obvious. Daddy? Norn spoke to me again in an uneasy voice. She had been watching my face this whole time. It's all right, Norn. Gently patting her on the head, I looked around the area. Zenith and Lilia were nowhere to be seen. Were they somewhere close nearby? Or was I the only one who had been brought here? In that case, why was Norn still with me? One possibility did come to mind. I'd once triggered a very nasty trap in the depths of the labyrinth, a hidden teleportation circle. This felt very similar. At the time, I was lucky enough to be teleported close nearby, but I reflexively grabbed Elena Lise by the sleeve as the trap went off, which got her dragged along as well. She was pretty pissed off at me. If you're unlucky, a teleport trap is the sort of thing that can be instantly lethal. It wasn't really my fault I stepped on it, since our monkey of a scout should have spotted the thing beforehand. But that wasn't important right now. Basically, teleportation magic was capable of instantly moving both you and anyone you were in physical contact with to a different location. That would explain why Norn was still with me, but the others weren't. Why had I been teleported, though? There'd been no warning at all. Had somebody done this to me deliberately? To be honest, I did have enemies all over the place. It wouldn't be surprising if someone launched a sneak attack on me, given all the bad stuff I'd done in the past. But teleportation magic? That just didn't make any sense. For one thing, there was no known incantation for it. To teleport someone, you needed to use either a magic circle or a special magic item. Teleportation items were banned worldwide. The creation of teleportation circles had been forbidden for so long that the art itself was all but lost. Why would anyone go to such extreme, dangerous lengths just to take revenge on a single man like me? And why would they just dump me in some empty field? Could one of the students from the training hall have been responsible? Maybe they were still nursing a grudge and teleported me away so that they could get their hands on Lilia. Maybe they put me here to send a message. When I made it back to my house, I find Zenith and Lilia being despoiled by a gang of vicious thugs. Damn, that did sound like something those bastards would think of. Uh, Daddy? Don't worry, Norn. It's okay. We'll get back home soon enough. Trying to reassure myself as much as Norn, I set off towards a nearby town. Fortunately, I had an Assuran gold coin hidden away in my sword sheath for emergencies. And thanks to old habits from my adventuring days, I always kept my sword on my person, even when I slept. The only time I took it off was when I made love. My adventure card was tucked away inside the holder, too. Just a small precaution against exactly this sort of emergency. I made my way to the local guild and exchanged my gold coin for smaller denominations. The receptionist handed me back 9 Assuran silver coins and 8 large coppers. They'd apparently hiked their fees at some point, but I had more than I needed anyway. I quickly reviewed the tasks that were available, found one for an emergency delivery, and accepted it on the spot. My card had run out of magic years ago, so the lady behind the counter had to recharge it for me first. When the words it reappeared, she exclaimed in surprise and asked me why an S-rank adventurer was taking on a job like this. Since it was an emergency request, the normal restrictions didn't apply, but under normal circumstances, it would have been an E-rank task. I didn't have any real reason to hide my situation, but I didn't feel like taking the time to explain. I uttered some vague non-explanation, then asked if I could borrow a horse. This was one of the special perks the guild offered S-ranked adventurers. When they accepted an urgent delivery job, they loaned you a ride free of charge. Of course, you needed to give the horse back once the job was done. But this time I was planning to ride off in a totally different direction. Did feel bad for the client, but I had an emergency of my own to deal with. The horse they brought out for me turned out to be quite an impressive specimen. I'd gotten lucky. That delivery job must have been very urgent indeed. There was a real possibility I'd lose my status as an adventurer for this stunt, but I could live with that. I wasn't planning to make my living that way ever again. I hoisted Norn onto the horse, then hopped up behind her. We galloped out of town immediately. Halfway through the trip, Norn fell ill. The girl had no experience riding horseback, and I kept us traveling day and night. It was probably just too much for her to handle. With the time it took to nurse her back to health, I didn't make it back to the Fitola region for a good 2 months. It took so long, I almost wished we'd just taken a carriage from the start. I'd long since failed the delivery job, of course, but the breach of contract fee wasn't too painful. At the moment, though, I was in the depths of despair. We hadn't reached Buena Village yet, but I'd finally discovered just how grave the situation really was. Everything in the Fatoa region had vanished. I was bewildered. Totally bewildered. What the hell had happened? Where was Buena Village now? Where were Zenith and Lilia? The Citadel of Roa had disappeared too. Did that even, or that mean even Rudius was gone? This can't be happening. At some point, I'd fall into my knees in shock and anguish. The words, they were wiped out by a teleport trap, echoed inside my mind. It was a phrase I'd heard more than once back in my adventuring days, when I was still exploring labyrinths. Teleportation traps were the one thing you had to watch out for. They split your party up and left you uncertain of your own location. Triggering one was a very, very bad idea. I heard numerous stories of veteran teams that were totally wiped out as a result of those things. Once I'd seen a stunned man recounting how his whole party had stepped on the teleportation circle. He managed to team up with another adventurer and fight his way out of the labyrinth, only to discover that all his friends had perished. But why had this happened here? To us? Daddy? Aren't we home yet? Norn's voice snapped me back to reality. Her small hand was clutching at my sleeve. Without saying a word, I hugged her close. What's wrong, Daddy? That's right. I'm her dad. This girl still didn't understand what had happened, but she wasn't worried, because she had me with her. I was her father. I was a father now, damn it! I couldn't show any weakness. I had to stay calm and confident. Everything was going to be all right. Teleportation was a dangerous trap, and I didn't have any idea why this had happened. But I was alive, wasn't I? Zenith was a former adventurer in her own right, and although Lilia wasn't as nimble as she used to be before her poisoning, she still knew how to use a sword. I should, though. Think, damn it. Was Lilia touching her in that moment? I couldn't remember, but I wasn't going to give up hope either. For now, I just had to believe that Lilia was holding her daughter's hand when that light hit us. I returned the guild's horse at the nearest town and began gathering information. It seemed like this magical calamity really had affected the entire Fatoa region. Philip and Soros were both missing, so Philip's older brother was currently serving as the acting lord. However, he was under intense political pressure to take responsibility for the disaster. From the sound of things, he was on the verge of being stripped of his position. All the man's energy was currently devoted to protecting himself, so he hadn't taken any real steps to deal with the calamity itself. Instead of looking out for his people, the selfish bastard was trying to save his own skin. And you wonder why I can't stand Assyrian nobles. In the course of my investigation, I met an old man named Alphonse. He introduced himself as a butler who had been in Philip's service prior to the disaster. His loyalty to the Boreas Greyrat family was apparently unshaken despite the current circumstances. He was setting up a refugee camp paid for out of his own pocket, and he wanted me to help him get it off the ground. When I asked why he wanted me, the old man explained that Philip had sometimes mentioned my name. Apparently, he had me pinned as a man who shows his real worth in a crisis, but also tends to create them through his own short sightedness. I wasn't really asking for a critique, but whatever. Alphonse admitted he'd been somewhat hesitant to approach me on the basis of this questionable endorsement. Once he took the fact that I was Rudius's father into consideration, however, he decided it would be wise to seek my help. I heard a bit about how things were going in Roa through the letters, but it was still nice to see my son was thought so highly of by someone he probably hadn't even interacted with that often. In any case, I accepted Alphonse's offer gladly and got to work right away. After a month, we made plenty of progress. Alphonse was a man with many connections. In only a few short weeks, he somehow dealt with all the preparations and gathered enough workers to get the refugee camp up and running. It was a seriously impressive feat. For my part, I recruited most of the younger refugees who had gathered in the area into an organization called the Fatoa Search and Rescue Squad. We traveled all around the country helping out people who had been displaced by the calamity. Of course, my primary objective wasn't to save a bunch of total strangers. First and foremost, I was looking for my family. At this point, the power struggle in the royal capital apparently resolved itself, since Alphonse began to receive disaster recovery funds from the government. I left a note behind at the refugee camp for Rodius and set out with my squad for the holy country of Milis, home to the headquarters of the Adventurers Guild. Ashura and Milis were two of the biggest countries in the world. I figured the information I was looking for had to be in one or the other. It felt like the logical approach. Honestly, I thought I'd find everyone soon enough. Talk about blind optimism. My first 6 months in Milis were productive enough. As it turned out, a large number of Fatoans had been teleported to this continent, and we went around rescuing every last one of them. Some had already been sold off as slaves, and forcibly liberating somebody or someone else's property was against the law in Milis. But the thought of someone selling Zenith or Lilia into slavery made me so furious that I never hesitated to break that law. I stuck stubbornly to the policy of rescuing everyone we found. Once I decided on that course of action, I turned to Zenith's family for help. As it happens, my wife came from a noble house with some real power in Milis. They were well known for producing many famous knights, among other things. With their assistance, I started to lay the groundwork for freeing all the slaves we relocated. All in all, our efforts went smoothly. We moved fast and found many of the stranded, penniless Fatoans quickly. Once we extracted them from whatever predicament they landed in, we provided those capable of heading back home themselves with traveling funds, recruited any willing volunteers into our squad, and found places for the children and elder refugees to stay. Freeing the slaves took more effort, of course. We paid for their freedom where we could. When that wasn't an option, we had Zenith's family put the pressure on. When that didn't work, we looked for chances to snatch them from their owners. Naturally, forcibly snatching away slaves didn't endear us to the Millis nobility as a whole. Some of them even sent their personal forces after us. We had a number of fatalities. Still, I wasn't about to stop. I had the moral high ground here. I was saving desperate people who needed help. For that reason, my squad stuck with me despite the danger. I used everything I had: the Grey Rat name, my connection to Zenith's family, and my reputation as a former adventurer to find ways around the obstacles on our path. But no matter how hard we worked, no matter how thoroughly I searched, I couldn't seem to find any information about Zenith or Lilia. Hell, I hadn't even heard anything about Rudius yet. That boy stood out like a sore thumb everywhere he went. Now it felt like he'd fallen off the face of the planet. Before I knew it, an entire year had slipped by. By this point, we were hearing about fewer and fewer stranded Fatolans. We probably found almost everyone as we were going to find in both the Millis continent and the southern regions of the central continent. There were still some smaller villages we hadn't searched yet, and a number of slaves we hadn't managed to free. That was about it. My squad was working systematically to liberate the remaining slaves. Once we got our hands on them, the rest was simple enough. I knew it was a violent approach. I knew that every slave we liberated earned me more hatred from the local nobility. Did it anyway. Sometimes that got my people attacked in the street. Sometimes they were badly injured or even killed. And some members of the squad blamed me for that. Maybe they were right. Maybe I could have prevented things from taking such an ugly turn. But no matter what anyone said, I wasn't going to change my approach now. I was too committed to the path I'd chosen. We started getting more news about dead Fatolans than live ones. There had been more bad news than good from the start, but the ratio had just kept getting worse. To be frank, the people we found alive were very much in the minority. Vietos, Chloe, Laws, Bonnie, Lane, Marion, Monty, all of them were gone now. Every single time I learned of another dead acquaintance, blood ran ice cold. Sometimes a member of the squad would break down in tears at the latest piece of awful news. More than once, we arrived just a little too late to save someone. A friend or family member would take their anger out on me, demanding to know why I'd taken so long to get us to that one town or village. There was a risk we'd get ourselves stranded somewhere if we didn't plan our movements carefully, though, so I didn't think my strategy was wrong. Under my leadership, we managed to save several thousand refugees. Of course, if I'd managed to get a hold of the members of my old party, Fangs of the Black Wolf, they could have searched the Demon Continent and the Beggarit Continent for us as well. I only managed to get in touch with one of them, and he'd vanished shortly after a few brief conversations. I had no idea what he was doing now. I wouldn't call him heartless or anything. We'd never gotten along that well in the first place, and there'd been one hell of a fight when I left. After the way I said goodbye, it would hardly be surprising they still resented me. Why the hell did I have to leave things on such a sour note anyway? Such a stupid kid. There wasn't much point dwelling on that now. A year and a half had passed since the displacement incident. These days, alcohol was the only thing that kept me going. I started drinking in the morning, and I kept right on going into the night. I was literally never sober. I knew I should stop myself. Whenever the booze wore off, the exact same thoughts always popped into my head. I tell myself that my family was dead. I think about the ways in which they might have died. I'd wonder what had happened to their corpses. I couldn't think about anything else. Can you really blame me? Even that absurdly talented son of mine had vanished without a trace. I didn't want to believe it. I really didn't. But in all probability, he was dead. They had all probably died sometime in the last 18 months, with tears running down their faces, waiting for me to rescue them. Every time I pictured it, I thought I might go crazy. What the hell was I doing here anyway? Why had I wasted all this time helping a bunch of strangers? I should have headed straight to the most dangerous parts of the world from the very start. Could have managed somehow, even if I was on my own. I made the wrong choice, and now I'd lost my family. The people I cared for most had been stolen from me. I could never get them back. I didn't want to believe that, of course. So I drank. When I was drunk, at least, I could feel something like happiness. I wasn't doing much real work anymore. In another 6 months, we was starting an operation to send many of the Fatoans we'd found on the Millis continent back home. These were old people, women, children, and people so sick they could barely move. If we gave them money, there was no guarantee they could endure a long journey. They all wanted to return to their homeland, so my squad would be escorting them all the way back to the kingdom of Asura. Planning was moving forward steadily, but despite my role as captain of the squad, I skipped out on the meeting and spent my days drinking. I would be remaining in Milis after the operation, along with a few other key members of the search and rescue squad. Once it was complete, however, our activities would be scaled down sharply. In other words, they were going to cut off the search for victims only after 2 years. It felt much too early, but at the same time, I had to admit that I understood their logic. Continuing to comb the countryside would be just a waste of money at this point. In the end, I hadn't managed to find a single member of my family. I was such a failure. Now that I was plastered all the time, the other members of the squad had started to keep their distance from me. I could hardly blame them. Nobody wants to waste their time dealing with some drunken moron. There were a few exceptions, though, and Norn was one of them. Daddy, guess what? Guess what happened when I was outside? No matter how drunk I might be, Norn would always chatter happily at me. This sweet little kid was all I had left of my family now. Right. There was a good reason I hadn't gone to the demon continent or Begarit, wasn't there? I had Norn to take care of. What was I supposed to do? Abandon my 4-year-old daughter? There's no way I could have left her behind and wandered off somewhere I might easily die. Hmm? What's up, Norn? Did something good happen? Yeah, I almost fell down in the street outside, but this big bald guy helped me out. Then he gave me this. Look! With a big smile, Norn showed me the bright red apple in her hands. It sure looked fresh and juicy. Oh yeah? Well, lucky you. Did you say thank you like a good girl? Yeah, when I said thanks, the baldy patted me on the head. No kidding. I guess you ran into a real nice person. But you shouldn't call them baldy, okay? Some guys are kind of sensitive about their hair. Chatting with my daughter was always so fun. Norn was the light of my life. If anyone ever tried to harm her, I'd end them, even if it meant picking a fight with the Pope of the Millis Church. Captain!
So if you haven't picked up on it, she's talking about Regard.
Yeah, I picked up.
Yeah.
It's
It's another
there's
one
not
of
that
those
many
little
bald,
things that
important
got left
people.
out. Well, it's another one of those little things that got left out of the anime, you know?
Yeah, and that's fucking huge.
Yeah.
One
It's
sec.
like, what other ball guy can we possibly think of that might be in the future even like
Yeah.
that up to this point?
Sorry, keep going.
No, you gave him a moment
Okay.
to blow through his nose, so it's fine.
Ugh. All right. Should I continue?
Oh, yeah.
Hello?
I think he muted. I assume so. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Captain, we've got a problem. Just as I was starting to feel better, one of my men burst into my room. Can't say I was pleased to have a conversation my daughter interrupted like this. Might have tossed the guy out with an angry roar, but Norn was still in the room. Some scrap of petty pride kept my voice calm. What's going on? The guys who went out on that job today just got attacked. What? Seriously? Now who'd go and do a thing like that? Dumb question. It was obviously those bastard aristocrats again. We had explained 100 times that innocent residents of the kingdom of Asura had been enslaved as a result of a magical calamity, but the scumbags stubbornly refused to hand them over. As I recalled, we'd been planning to rescue a slave from one of them today. All right, get your gear on, everyone. Let's go. I rushed out of my room and called to the squad's brawlers. None of them were exactly seasoned warriors, but it wasn't like we'd be going up against a bunch of veteran labyrinth explorers either. My people following close behind, I headed for the place where the fight had broken out. It wasn't a long walk. They'd attacked the building right next door. One of the search and rescue squad's warehouses, the place we used to store clothing and supplies for our personnel. If our enemies had found it, we had a huge problem on our hands, or we had a problem on our hands. We might need to change our base of operations. There's only one of them, but he's tough. Be careful, Paul. Is he a swordsman or what? No, it's a magician. Looks like a kid, but he has his face hidden. Kid magician. I knew my people were amateurs, but they were adults in decent shape, and he'd taken out a bunch of them. This kid was probably a halfling, if you ask me. They were always taking advantage of their childlike appearance to deceive people. Veteran halfling mage, then. Could I beat him in this condition? I was confident I could handle a typical thug or three no matter how drunk I was, but... should be fine. Got plenty of tricks up my sleeve. Shaking my head, I stepped into the warehouse. Chapter 3, Family Squabble. Paul was staying at a place called the Dawn Door Inn, but he led me to the bar next door. there were 10 or so wooden tables inside, and
Hold
at
up.
that moment, I was. Oh,
Can you
sorry.
imagine? Can you imagine if Paul had actually killed him
Holy
and then removed
fuck!
the mask
Oh,
to
that would've been
actually see it was
embarrassing.
Rudy? Em-
Honestly, that would have been the start of a
Embarrassing?
different series.
Embarrassing,
That
my
would've been
dude.
pretty awkward. It
This-
would have been
Awkward?
pretty
isn't-
bad.
Okay, you're choosing really tame words to
Mild
describe this.
terminology, yeah.
Yeah,
like
this
the most
isn't.
tame- like literally. I'm just imagining if Paul had actually killed him, and then they removed the mask, saw it was Rudy. That would have been it. Paul would be gone. Like that's
He probably
it.
would have killed himself.
Yeah, he like literally
Only Norm
found
would've
out he
understood
killed
that
his own
fucked it.
son.
He'd
That would
he'd
be
probably
it.
be really
No.
close to killing himself
No,
or
no,
kill himself.
The probably he would have probably right then and there attempted it, and he probably would have succeeded unless somebody could get to him very fast to stop it.
Yeah.
Like Geese, maybe, if he happened to be there.
Oh,
Mhm.
can you believe if Eris and Regard found out?
Oh God. Holy shit.
And then they
Oh, no,
learned
no,
that it
he-
was his father that killed him?
This
Okay,
this
here's
feels
a
like
question. That brings up a question.
this
Actually,
is taking a
Who do you
very
think would-
berserk turn.
Yo, right?
Who do you think would win in a fight, like Regard or Paul?
Regard.
Well, yeah,
100%
because
Regard.
because Paul's fucking drunk at that point.
Well, not even
If he
that.
killed him-
Stone
Not
cold
even
sober.
no drunk.
Guys, you got to understand, stone cold sober, Regard would wipe the floor with Paul.
That is true. Regard has way more battle experience, and he's got a spear which beats swords because Fire Emblem. But
I mean, here's the thing. Even if we didn't go with the whole 500 years worth of battle experience, my dude, Paul is an adventurer. Regard fought as a soldier in a war, and one of the high tier soldiers in that
yeah.
war.
Mhm.
It's not the same. It's not the same at all.
Yeah. Also, if Paul did kill Rudius, he probably wouldn't be in the best of fucking mental state at that point. So
I mean, he probably welcomed death.
yeah, so it would not even be like a fight.
It wouldn't
all.
even be a contest.
It would just be more like a fucking execution.
honestly, to be fair, it'd probably be Eris that's trying to kill him,
Yeah,
not
definitely. But,
Regard. It would definitely be Eris.
yeah, but Regard would probably fucking hold back a lot,
Yeah.
trying to stop Eris from killing him and trying to also not feel
Especially,
extreme
If he
anger.
didn't
especially
already,
if
like,
he found out
decapitate
that
the
he's
man already.
Norn's father as well. Like,
Yeah. Oh man, that would.
Oh, the
That would
the
suck.
immediate, like, she would hate Paul forever. But I'm just imagining that Eris would latch on to
She would be. To Norn.
Norn. Yeah, she would latch
Yeah.
on to Norn, and like anybody that tried to go near her would be dealing with the biggest monster ever.
The big sister.
Yeah, like the scary ass big monster. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I would like
just-
to think that would happen, but Norn would be the real victim of all that.
yeah.
I would feel so bad for her.
Norn would be the biggest victim of all that.
Yeah.
Thank God he didn't kill him.
Yeah.
And he
Thankfully,
was
they
trying.
realized like halfway
He was
into it.
trying too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank goodness the panties tore in half.
No, well, not just that, but like, thank God for the eye of foresight, or he probably would have died several times over.
I know. So it's like.
Like, the anime doesn't show just how close this whole thing was. Like,
Yeah.
Paul was a hair's breadth away from killing his son.
Yeah. Also doesn't really go too deep into his mental state as the light novel does, but it couldn't really do that.
It doesn't. It does show a couple of like it shows and it doesn't tell. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
two different. It's two different mediums. So
Yeah. Well,
because
I
you
think
have
from
to
the
tell
anime,
so
there wasn't
much.
really.
yeah,
Yeah. And the anime doesn't really have like a whole lot of first person narrative point of
no, it
views.
doesn't. So this
Because
this
they
kind of
didn't want
gives
to waste
you
time.
the light novel definitely does a thing of giving you more context for
Yeah,
the characters than the
for
anime
sure.
does. You can
Because
get
of
the
time,
you
I'm
can
sure.
kind of get the gist of what's happening from the anime, but like here's
Yeah,
the
because we could
light
tell he
novels
was
when you
obviously
go
not.
in depth with them.
Yeah.
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 Right.
So
Uh,
I think people have a much deeper sense of like where Paul. I'm curious. Does this change your perception of Paul at this point in the story, or versus this point in the anime? Like, does it change anything about your perception of Paul, or is it kind of the same? You know, where are we at on this?
mm.
feel a little
I mean,
sorrier for him to a,
I
a
mean,
little
I
bit.
still did. I mean, that still didn't give him the fucking. I'm not condoning him beating the shit out of
Oh, no,
Rudy
no,
because
no,
he was the one
no.
who struck
At this
first.
point,
At
not
this point, I don't blame
we
him.
haven't done the argument. We haven't done the
Yeah,
argument. But
yeah. At this
how do you
point, I
feel
do
at
feel
this
sorry
point?
for him because he's like he literally got tore from his family and then spent what, like 2 years, right?
Yeah.
Forgot 2 years trying to fucking
2
help
years,
other
yeah.
people out,
Well, here's
and took a barrage of fucking people yelling at him. So it's like,
also I'm pretty pissed off at Paul for another reason at this point.
yeah,
Rudy had not contacted his family or seen his family the entire time since he's been in Fatoa.
yeah. And
So
he himself was fucking booted into the fucking demon continent with no money,
well, he
no
was booted
fucking.
on. Keep in mind that he was knocked out and booted onto the carriage
Yeah,
by
so it's
Paul,
that,
and then
and
told
got
that he
fucking
could,
teleported.
and then told that he could not so much as fucking write to them.
Yeah, so
Because of
it's a
Paul,
lot.
Was that an
because
anime
of
thing
Paul's
too, or was
raising.
that only
Yeah, that's an
the
anime
light
thing. That's an
novel?
anime thing too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Mm.
So at the end of the day, Rudy could just look at Paul and be like, "You're not my family. You gave me up."
Yeah, yeah. Like he literally axed himself in the moment he threw him onto the cart.
You kicked me out. You didn't give me a
Yeah.
choice on leaving. You kicked me out. You said I couldn't write to you. You ostracized and disowned me. And now you
Yeah.
come back wanting me to help find your family because you lost them and you're too pathetic to find them. Like, there's a whole diatribe that I had of what ifs that Rudy
Yeah.
could say at this point, and it's like,
Yeah,
and it's like he could straight up blame Paul for everything, and
That
he'd be
is
in the
true.
right. He'd be in the right.
hmm
I think the only argument that now that I'm thinking about that Paul could use is like, you wanted to go to school, but how he went about doing it.
Yeah,
with
yeah.
Rudy,
It's
I
not
think
the
is the
it's
part
not the
where-
what, it's the how, and the fact that like
Mhm.
here's
How
here's
he went about
I
it.
think Rudy is like they could have talked it out, said their goodbyes, he would have left. That's fine.
yeah, Yeah.
He also Paul didn't even let him know what was happening. He just suddenly fought him, knocked him out, tied him up, and threw him on a carriage.
yeah. So it's
Well,
like,
okay. There
He
was
didn't
the
even
one
know what was
thing-
happening. He didn't even know what was happening or where the fuck he was going or what he
or
was
what
doing
was going on?
until he was on that carriage.
Yeah, with Ghislaine.
If Paul had actually sat down and talked with him about it,
Yeah, like a normal.
Rudy
fucking
probably
he would have
would've
dad.
lost that
gone.
argument, and Rudy wouldn't have
Yeah.
gone.
yeah, no, Rudy would have gone. Rudy would
Yeah.
have.
No,
Yeah,
because
'cause
we
he-
read in the book that if he did, he's like, if I had sat down and talked with you, you would have talked me out of it because I wouldn't be bringing in Sylphie as well. You wouldn't
No,
be going.
I
with Sylphie.
think
You
no,
be
I
separated.
still believe 100% that he would have gone. 100%.
Well, depending on how.
Because
yeah,
what he-
depending on how
because
he
the
was
job
set
that
up,
he's
he was probably
doing-
gone.
because the job that he's doing is for Sylphie. So I
Yeah.
think he would have gone. But
Yeah.
the restrictions would have been lessened. He would have written letters to his parents. I honestly
And to Sylphie.
also keep in mind, Rudy doesn't know the reason. He just knows that none of his family showed up to see him for his 10th birthday, which is supposed to be a very big deal.
Yeah, so it's like.
So at this point, Rudy has every right before this whole next point, this next area kicks in, to just look Paul straight in the face and say, "Fuck off."
yeah,
He has
I mean,
every
also,
right. Because
Yeah.
here's the problem. Paul thinks that he's grown up from that piece of shit that he was before. He hasn't. He's still that.
No,
He's
No,
still
yeah, 'cause
very
he's-
much worthless. He's kind of a worthless dad, and half of it came from selfishness of him not wanting the kids all to himself, so that he'd be the only man that they recognize. And
Yeah.
it's like, dude, what a petty
It's very
little
petty.
shit. Yeah.
yeah.
Anyway,
Well, also, it's like if Rudy didn't get lucky
Mm.
and wake up in the demon continent with a guy who protected them
Reacher.
the entire time,
Yeah.
yeah, with Reacher,
Arguably
This
the
could
have been
strongest
dead.
so
guardian
much
he could have.
easier.
yeah, they would probably be dead or
I
in much worse off.
I mean, I'm not going to take Paul's side on this because he's made so many mistakes, but also,
Yeah.
I mean, my whole thing on this is they're both wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand how he's feeling, but that
Yeah, I
doesn't
can understand.
condone
I
what he
can
did.
understand where they're both coming from, but they're
Yeah.
both wrong because they're
Yeah.
both
Yeah,
idiots.
I can understand the angle, but not the method.
All right, let's get to two
Oh, no,
idiots
you're-
fighting in a bar.
Okay.
Real quick, I could just be like, I can understand both of their arguments here, and I actually have been more devil advocate for Paul. Nah, Rudy's more on the right because, like you said, was told not to write to him, and the
Well, he had
how
no
was really wrong.
fucking he had no
He had no
fucking
choice in the
clue.
matter.
Yeah, he had
He
absolutely
was
no choice.
blindsided. He had no choice, and
And he had to make
everything
the
said,
best
yeah,
of
no.
what he
Yeah,
fucking had.
literally.
If I had-
literally,
like-
how was he supposed to know? And like, that's the thing
Yeah.
that I feel bad that he never pointed out. When he's like, "Why would you looking for your family?" Well, how was I supposed to know? You didn't even let me write to them.
Yeah, he didn't even know. He couldn't write to them. He didn't know. Like, Paul just left the letter
Dude,
at like the
he
fucking
was
guild.
literally
That's
he
it.
was literally the second person teleported away. He had
And
no
he had,
idea.
like-
He had
Yeah.
no idea the range of the
Yeah, Paul had
teleportation.
no
he was
idea about
he was
that, yeah.
busy trying to, not die
Also,
and
but
fucking
I,
make
I
money
mean,
to live
and I mean,
in the middle of a
yeah, but,
fucking
like,
place he doesn't know anything about.
Yeah, he missed all the guild notes addressed to him because of
Yeah,
all
but
the
it's
shit
like-
that went down in
Yeah. Yeah. But because he was fucking busy.
Yeah.
He was
busy
trying to not
surviving.
fucking die.
Well, I mean, we know that Paul doesn't, at
Mhm.
least at this point.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I know.
we have the
And
I know,
context
but
of
at the
the
same
MVP,
time.
They
the
don't.
the only person who's got who is in the right here is Geese.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%
Geese.
Yeah, we
Geese,
all
100%.
gun to our head. Who do we prefer in
Geese
this
is our
argument? It's
MVP.
Geese.
Geese. It's 100% Geese.
Who
Moon,
wins
you
this
still
argument?
there?
It's Geese.
I think Moon is EP.
No, I've been here the
Feedback.
whole time. I'm just staying quiet because like my sinuses are acting up, so I'm like
I know
coughing and
Yeah.
snorting and
I know
It's
that
okay.
feeling.
Mine have
Yeah,
been
yeah.
kind of acting up right now, so
yeah,
it's like,
it's
okay.
killing me.
Yeah, mine have been
Yeah.
kind of off and on as well.
Yeah.
I just figured you'd want to throw your thoughts into the ring on this one too.
I mean, I'm just kind of agreeing with everyone. I don't have.
Yeah, I
He
think
has
I
no
think
input.
what he
Everyone else is
thinking
saying
has been
things he
said.
needs to say.
So,
And we've-
so
we've-
just,
yeah,
just,
we talked about this
right,
before,
So
but still.
when it comes to Rudius versus Paul coming up, we're pretty much pro Geese. That's
Yeah.
You know
yeah,
what I-
pretty much. Yeah.
Rich, you know what I just realized? This right here.
Uh-huh.
This would have been our Thanksgiving like political debate.
Yeah. What
Yeah,
if,
but there's no
100%.
yeah, but there's no like
who was in
staunch
the,
oppositions
who was
though.
in the right? Paul or Rudius? Geese. It was Geese.
Geese.
Well, see, this is
Oh,
how
geez.
all discourse and talk should be talked about. There should always be like, okay, we
I
have
feel like I
A,
would've
we have
been-
B.
See,
We're
guys,
working towards
guys,
solution C
see,
or compromise
this whole
C.
statement right here. This is why we need a fucking third party.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, or we need,
was-
there's
who's-
nuance to everything. There's no black and white.
If we want to move this to politics, is Paul the Republican Paul versus Rudy's the
The
Democrat?
Democratic Rudy.
We need a Geese. We need a Geese to
We
come
need
and
the
save
neutral
us from
geese.
this.
This is true. Well, we need like a third person to kind of be like, okay, listen up.
All right, listen.
I
Here,
know you're A,
motherfuckers.
you're B, but let's take the best of both and create C,
Yeah.
please. Anyway,
Alrighty.
Oh, the bartender then.
yeah, the bartender was good too, but he
Oh
was
yeah.
he was a homie. He was
like,
good.
at
He has
least
one
look
guy.
at the
He
man.
has one line. So yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's
All
let's go ahead.
Yeah.
Paul was staying at a place called the Dawn Door Inn, but he led me to the bar next door. There were 10 around wooden tables inside, and at the moment I was seated at one across from my father. It was still daytime, but we weren't the only ones in the bar. In fact, every seat was taken. The guys I knocked out in the warehouse earlier were sitting around having their injuries tended to by the group's healers. It went without saying that the looks they shot me weren't too friendly. Everyone here was apparently a member of Paul's gang. The most attention-grabbing of them all was definitely the woman warrior sitting diagonally from Paul. She had short chestnut hair that curled outward at the ends, a pouty mouth, and a fairly charming face. But it was her figure and her outfit that really made her stand out. Her chest was huge, her waist was thin, and her butt was plump. But for some reason, she was still wearing that bikini armor. I guess she was still in her late teens. It was the same girl who'd given me so much trouble earlier. Paul had called her Vieira. She definitely had the kind of body I could see my old man drooling over. I myself found it difficult to look away when I glanced in her direction, and that absurdly skimpy clothing certainly didn't help matters. Bikini armor itself wasn't so rare in this world. After all, most injuries could be instantly healed with magic, so there were some swordswomen who opted for lighter protective equipment, accepting the fact that they'd get cut up sometimes. I met a few people like that on the Demon Continent, but I had to assume it was the same for her. But I'd never seen anyone in an outfit this minimal before. Normally, armor like that was worn over lightweight clothing, not bare skin. But you'd wear protectors to cover at least some of your joints. I guess we were just sitting around in a bar right now, so it would make sense to not bother wearing those. By the same token, you'd normally wear a coat over that sort of armor when you weren't fighting. That was what the ladies on the Demon Continent did, at least. Although some of the more elderly swordswomen sometimes didn't bother. Wait, hadn't she put on an overcoat back at the warehouse after I cast a spell? Why the heck would she take it off again? Well, whatever. Might as well enjoy the eye candy while I could. Yes, indeed. Splendid, splendid. Whoops. I'd accidentally met the girl's gaze while ogling her. She gave me a quick wink, so I returned one of my own. Hey, Rudy. Rudy? At this point, I noticed Paul was speaking to me and regretfully tore my eyes away from the woman warrior. Hello, Father. It's been a while. Yeah, it's, good to see you're alive, kid. Paul's voice was full of exhaustion. The man really had changed quite a lot, and not for the better, that's for sure. I'd never seen him so haggard or disheveled before. Well, thanks. To be honest, I was having a very hard time making sense of the situation. What on earth was Paul doing here? This was the holy country of Milis. It was about as far from the kingdom of Asura as Mongolia was from Africa. Had he come out here to look for me? No, that couldn't be right. He didn't even know I'd been teleported to the demon continent. There had to be some other reason. What happened to his job protecting Buena Village? So, what are you doing here, Father? That question seemed like a reasonable starting point to me, but Paul reacted with obvious surprise. What? You did see my message, right? Your message? What was he talking about? I didn't remember getting any messages from him. For some reason, Paul frowned sullenly at my confusion. Had I managed to upset him somehow? You mind telling me what you've been doing up until now, Rudy? Uh, Mostly trying to survive. It's kind of a long story. I was really hoping Paul would explain the situation first, but since he asked, I decided to tell him the story of my road to Milishion. I began with my teleportation to the demon continent with Eris, describing how I'd been rescued by a demon, became adventurers, and spent a solid year traveling all the way to Windport. In retrospect, it had been a pretty fun journey. We got out to a rough start, true, but by the 6th month or so, we'd gotten used to adventure life. I gradually started to enjoy telling my own story. My descriptions of events grew more eloquent, and I began to describe various episodes in increasingly dramatic ways. It was all nonfiction, but I found ways to weave everything into one big spectacular tale. For starters, I split our adventure on the Demon Continent into 3 clear parts. Chapter 1, I meet my dear friend Regerd and we make a name for ourselves in the city of Rikarisu. Chapter 2, vowing to help Regerd in his quest and right various wrongs, the great magician Rudy sets out on a great journey. Chapter 3, I fall into a cowardly beastfolk trap and find myself a helpless captive in their village. There might have been a few slight exaggerations thrown in here and there, but I kept the narrative rolling smoothly. After a while, I was enjoying myself so much that I started waving my hands around and adding dramatic sound effects to the action scenes. Also, I opted to leave out the whole affair with the man god. And then, as we finally arrived at Windport, the first thing that met our eyes, just as I was wrapping up chapter 2 of my chronicles of a rambling journey across the demon continent, I abruptly fell silent. For some reason, Paul's mood had taken a turn for the worse. There was something very much like a scowl on his face. He was drumming his fingers on the table in irritation. Was it something I said? I didn't really understand why he was so upset, so I decided to try and continue. Uh, so anyway, after that, we headed for the Great Forest. Enough, Paul said, his tone distinctly irritated. I get the picture, okay? You spent the last year and a half playing around. The way he put that kind of ticked me off. Excuse me? I had a lot of trouble out there, actually. Oh, yeah? When? Huh? He caught me off guard with that one. My voice came out a little strange. The way you just described it, the whole thing sounded like a damn walk in the park. Well, yeah, that's because I deliberately told the story that way. Maybe I'd gotten a little too carried away in retrospect. Look, Rudy, let me ask you one thing. What is it? Why didn't you bother trying to find out if anyone else had been teleported to the demon continent? I fell silent. It was the only thing I could do. I didn't have a good answer to his question, after all. There was only one possible reply. One simple reason. It slipped my mind. At first, I did have my hands completely full with our party's problems, but even after we started to get a handle on things, it never occurred to me that anyone other than us might have been sent to the demon continent as well. I guess I forgot about that. Um, I sort of had my hands full. Did you, though? You found the time to help out some random demon you never met before, but couldn't spare a thought for the other people who'd probably been sent out there too? I fell silent again. Maybe I got my priorities wrong. Fine, but I couldn't see the point of raking me over the coals about it after the fact. The thought just hadn't occurred to me at the time, so what was I supposed to say? Ha! Or, ha! So what? You didn't look for anyone. You didn't even bother to write a single letter. You just wandered around enjoying. Oh, sorry. Ha! So what? You didn't look for anyone. You didn't even bother to write a single letter. You just wandered around enjoying the adventure life of some cute little lady and an invincible bodyguard. And then, oh, sorry, this is him. You just wandered around enjoying the adventure life with some cute little lady and an invincible bodyguard. And then, once you get to Milashion, the first thing you do is stumble on a kidnapping, put some panties on your head, pretend you're some kind of hero. With a mocking snort, Paul reached out to grab a bottle of alcohol from the next table over. He drained half of it in a single long swig and spat loudly on the floor. His attitude was really starting to piss me off. I wasn't going to tell him not to drink booze, but we were in kind of the middle of an important discussion here. Look, I did the best I could, okay? I was stranded in a totally unfamiliar place with no money, and I felt like I had to focus on keeping Eris safe. Can you really blame me if I missed a few things? I'm not blaming you or anything, kid. Paul's tone was as mocking as ever. I couldn't help raising my voice this time. Why do you keep taking jabs at me like this, then? My patience had reached its limits. I didn't understand why the man was acting like this. Why? Once again, Paul spat on the floor in disgust. That's what I want to know. Why? Excuse me? This conversation was getting more confusing by the second. What was he been trying to say here? This Eris kid is Philip's daughter, right? Huh? Oh, yeah, of course. I've never laid eyes on her myself. Well, I'm sure she's one cute little lady. Was that why you didn't send any letters? Might have made it tougher to make a move on her if she picked up too many bodyguards, I guess. Oh, come on. I already told you. I just forgot. Nothing like that had even crossed my mind. True, Eris was the daughter of a powerful family. The Grey Rats had a lot of influence. If I'd spoken to the local lord on Zantport, they might have given us a bodyguard or two. Of course, I'd ended up in a prison cell in a Beastfolk village before I had the chance to try anything like that. Hadn't I explained this to him already? Oh, wait, no, I never got to that part, actually. Still, I really did feel like I'd done the best job I could under the circumstances. I wasn't saying that I had made the best possible decisions at all times, but I didn't think Paul had any right to criticize me after the fact. When he fell silent for a moment, the bikini armor lady put a hand on Paul's shoulder from behind. Captain, why don't you just leave it at that? He's still a young boy, you know. There's no reason to be so harsh on him. I couldn't help snorting. Typical Paul, really. For all his big talk, he couldn't even control himself around women. Where did a guy like that get off talking down to me like this anyway? I hadn't laid a finger on Eris, just for the record. To be sure, I had my moments of temptation. Sometimes my sinful urges almost got the better of me, but at the end of the day, I've never even touched her. I'm not sure you have any right to lecture me about women, father. What? Paul's eyes narrowed ominously at this point, but at the time I didn't notice. Who's that girl behind you anyway? Viera. What about her? Tell me, do Mother and Lilia know you're working so closely with such a pretty woman? No, they don't. How the hell would they? Paul's face twisted bitterly, but I wasn't even looking at it. I was too busy enjoying the fact that I finally gotten the upper hand. So you get to cheat on them to your heart's content, then. That's quite an outfit you got her wearing, by the way. I guess I'll be getting a new brother or sister sometime soon. So all of a sudden, I found myself lying on the ground, my face throbbing painfully. Paul was looking down at me with hatred in his eyes. I've had about enough of this shit, Rudy. He punched me. Why? What the hell? Look, if you made it here, you passed through Zantport at some point, right? Yeah. So what? So you know already, don't you? What was he on about? This seriously didn't make any damn sense anymore. All I could tell was that Paul was hiding something from me, and that he was pissed off I didn't know what that something was. What a joke. I wasn't all knowing, damn it. The world was full of things I didn't know. I have no idea what you're even talking about. I sprang to my feet and took a swing at Paul. Even as he dodged the punch, I was activating my eye of foresight. He catches my leg and trips me. I stepped down hard on Paul's foot and pivoted to throw another punch towards his chin. He dodges my punch and hits me with a counter. The man moved well for someone so obviously drunk. I channeled magic in my right hand, but I was no match for Paul in a close-range brawl. I just had to use my spells. The whirlwind I called forth hit my father head on. With a wordless shout of surprise, he spun backward through the air, soaring all the way behind the bar's counter. The crash of breaking bottles filled the room as he hit the floor. God damn it! That's the last straw! Paul rose to his feet once more, but staggered unsteadily when he tried to move. He'd been drinking too much, moron. He'd been so much stronger before. The old Paul would have warded off my whirlwind somehow, even from that awkward position. Rudy, you little... Captain! As Paul faltered, another woman rushed to his side. This time it was the robed magician. The man who was just surrounded by girls, wasn't he? Pretty amazing that he had the nerve to lecture me. Get off me! Pushing the magician aside, Paul strode back across the room to me. How many women did you cheat with while I was gone, Paul? Shut the hell up! He throws a haymaker with his right hand. Talk about a telegraph punch. Was this the Paul, or was really the Paul I knew? Even without the eye of foresight, I probably could have dodged this one. Ha! I grabbed his outstretched arm and pulled him forward into something like a one-armed shoulder throw. Of course, I couldn't actually do real judo. I used a burst of wind magic to propel him along and just smacked him down into the ground as hard as I could. Paul didn't even manage to break his fall properly as he lay spread out awkwardly on the floor. I dropped down and mounted him, pinning his arms under my knees the way Eris always did. I did the best I could, okay? I hit him and hit him and hit him some more. Gritting his teeth, Paul glared up at me with his eyes full of bitter fury. What was wrong with him, damn it? What had I done to deserve that look? What do you want from me? I was stranded in a totally unfamiliar place. I didn't have anyone to turn to, and I still managed to make it all this way. Isn't that good enough? You could have done better, and you know it. That's not true. I punched him again and again. We both ran out of things to say, apparently. Paul just looked up at me, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. He looked so irritated, like he was dealing with someone totally unreasonable. Why? I'd never seen an expression like that on his face before. This wasn't like him at all. Damn it to... Stop it! All of a sudden, something smacked into me from the side. I swayed a little from the impact, and in the next instant, Paul shoved me off him and sat up. Assuming another attack would follow, I quickly braced myself. Paul didn't move towards me, because there was now a little girl standing right in between us. Stop it! Just stop it! The kid had Paul's nose and Zena's golden hair. I recognized her immediately. It was Norn Greyrat. My little sister. She'd gotten a lot bigger since the last time I saw her. She'd be 5 years old by now, right? Maybe in 6. Why was she standing in front of me with her arms spread wide? Stop picking on Daddy! I blinked in confusion. Huh? Picking on Daddy? What? No. Come on. Norn was glaring at me, looking like she might burst into tears at any moment. When I looked around the room, for some reason, everyone was looking at me like I was a bad guy. Are you serious? I felt my blood go cold. Memories from decades earlier flashed in my mind. Memories of all the times I've been bullied in my past life. Whenever I tried to stand up for myself back then, everyone in the classroom used to just look at me like this. Right. Right, sure. Guess I was in the wrong again, huh? Whatever. I give up. Enough of this. It was time for me to leave. I hadn't seen anything worthwhile here, and I hadn't done anything either. Might as well just head back to the inn and wait for Eris and Regerd. Could leave the city right away. Maybe even tomorrow or the next day. It wasn't the end of the world, really. The capital was hardly the only place we could earn some money. I mean, Westport had to have a guild branch of its own, right?
Shut the fuck up, you piece of shit.
Listen, Rudy. You weren't the only ones who got teleported by the calamity. Everyone in Buena Village was too. Paul was saying something or other, although it didn't really register. What? What was that just now? I left a message for you with the guild in Sandport and Westport. Didn't you become an adventurer? Why the hell didn't you read it? Huh? I hadn't seen anything like that in Sandport. No, wait. Right. We never had the chance to visit the Adventurers Guild there. Had we? I went straight to pick up Regerd after we arrived, and that outing ended with me locked in a prison cell in Doldia Village. While you were off enjoying your little vacation, a whole bunch of people died. I'd seen the displacement incident with my own 2 eyes. I'd seen the scale of that magical calamity. Why hadn't I figured any of this out on my own? Even the man god referred to it as a huge disaster. I had no reason to assume it would never reach Buena Village. So everyone back home had disappeared. Does that mean Sophie's missing too? You were more worried about some girl than your own mother, Rudy? Paul said, scowling irritably. My breath caught in my throat. What? What? You haven't even found Mother? That's right. I can't find her anywhere. Or Lilia either. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. My legs trembled and gave out under me. I stumbled backwards, barely managed to catch myself on a chair before I fell. We've been looking, though. We've been looking for everyone who vanished. That's the whole point of the search and rescue squad. The search and rescue squad? Everyone here was part of an organized search party. Or everyone here was part of an organized search party then? But why would a search and rescue team snatch people off the street? Because some of this place were sold into slavery. According to my father, it was a common scenario. You're teleported to a totally unfamiliar place, you have no idea where you even are, and then someone takes advantage of that to deceive you and enslave you. Paul and the other squad members had compared countless records against their list of missing people gone to see every enslaved Fatoan they located, and then tried to convince their owners to release them. But apparently many of these people firmly refused to give up their property. Under the slave laws of Milis, it didn't matter how you ended up a slave. Once you were one, you were nothing more than your owner's private possession. So Paul had to resort to forcibly liberating slaves. Stealing a slave was a crime naturally, but there were certain loopholes in the law. The squad had taken full advantage of them to liberate many people. Of course, they were willing to respect the wishes of anyone who chose to remain in their current situation, but virtually every slave they found begged tearfully to be taken back to their homeland. The boy they'd saved earlier today had been one such case, and one of the kid had looked so familiar. It was Somal, one of the children who used to pick on Sylphie back in the day. For the last year, he'd been forced to work as a kind of male prostitute here. Paul and his companions had heard the bitter cries of countless enslaved Fatoans, some of whom they still hadn't managed to rescue. They made a lot of enemies among the local nobility, and members of the squad had begun to drop away as a result of their increasingly forceful methods. Paul was under a mountain of pressure from all sides. Every day was a nerve-wracking ordeal, but nonetheless he persevered. The only thing that mattered was finding and rescuing the victims of the calamity, and everything he did for them. I thought you'd figured out the situation a long time ago, Rudy. I assumed you were already out there doing your part. All I could do at this point was hang my head. He wasn't being fair. How was I supposed to know about all this? Then again, when I really thought about it, it was entirely possible that I could have found displaced Fitoans in some of the towns we passed through on the Demon Continent. If I'd spoken to them, I probably would have gotten a sense of just how large scale the disaster really was. I hadn't put enough effort in understanding the situation. I prioritized helping Regerd over learning more about the calamity. I screwed up, plain and simple. And now, I find out you were messing around on some adventure. Messing around, huh? Yeah, couldn't really argue with that. The whole time I was out there stealing Eris's panties, leering at the ladies in the Adventure Guild, sucking up to the great Demon Empress, and ogling a girl with cat ears. Paul was desperately searching for a missing family. No wonder he'd gotten so pissed off at me. Still, I couldn't find it in me to apologize. At the end of the day, I had done my best. I'd thought things through and made the decisions that felt most reasonable to me. What was I supposed to do about any of it now? Paul didn't say another word. Norm was silent too, but I could see the hostility in their eyes, and it hurt me deeply. Felt like they'd taken out a big piece of my heart. I glanced around the room and saw that Paul's comrades were also looking at me with reproachful eyes. More painful memories came flooding back. I remember the day after a bunch of delinquents stripped me naked and tied me up outside for everyone to see. I remember the way everyone looked at me when I walked in the classroom that morning. My mind went blank. At some point, I made my way back to our room at the inn. I collapsed onto the bed. I wasn't sure what had happened to me or why. I wasn't sure of anything. My brain wasn't really working at that moment. Huh? Something inside my clothes wrinkled audibly. Rooting around in them, I found the writing paper I'd bought that afternoon. I crushed it in my hands and tossed it away. With a long sigh, I lowered myself back onto the bed and hugged my knees to my chest. I didn't want to do anything at all. I'd never been treated this coldly by a parent before, not even in my previous life. When all was said and done, Mom and Dad had always been pretty soft on me. But now Paul had totally rejected me. He looked at me the same way my brother in my former life had on the day he kicked me out of the house. Where had I gone wrong? I thought I'd done a decent job, I've done a decent job, all things considered. Even now, none of my major decisions stood out as fatally flawed. The closest thing that came to my mind was the way I turned to Regerd for help at the very beginning. I'd taken the man god's advice on that one, even though I deeply mistrusted him. It hadn't helped that I described my travels as cheerfully as possible. That was partly because I'd gotten carried away, but I also hadn't wanted to get Paul worried. I had my pride too. I wanted to convince him that I could handle myself just fine. Paul was in no mood for a lighthearted tale of adventure, though, and neither were the other members of his team. I'd definitely chosen my words poorly. For one thing, I never wanted to imply that Sylphie was more important than my mother, but Paul and Norn were both there. Wasn't it only natural for me to assume that Zenith was okay as well? No, that's just an excuse. In that moment, I thought of Zenith hadn't even popped in my head. What about the whole womanizing thing, though? Paul was the one who brought that up, and I never laid a finger on Eris. Surely a cheating scumbag like him didn't have any right to lecture me. Oh, wait. Now it made sense. Maybe he hadn't touched those girls either. Yeah, that would explain why he'd flipped out on me. Okay, I pieced the whole thing together now. I just have to go back tomorrow and talk to Paul again. We both just got a little emotional today. That's all. I dealt with this sort of thing before. Once we talked it out, he'd understand. Yeah, everything should go fine next time. I was worried about our family too, of course. If I'd known they were missing earlier, I would have looked for them too. It really sucked that I'd spent over a year on the Demon Continent without gathering any information. By the end of the day, I was still alive. I still had a chance to make things right. All we had to do was plan out a slow, thorough search. Finding a couple of stranded people in a world this big was going to take a while no matter what. Paul understood that, surely. Once I got him calmed down, we could figure out our next move. We'd want to focus on the places nobody had searched yet. I'd helped out too, of course. Once I dropped Eris back off in Asura, I could either just keep traveling up the north or head off somewhere else entirely. Yeah, all right then. First of all, I'll go see Paul again. I'll go back to that bar and... Suddenly overwhelmed by nausea, I scrambled out of bed and ran to the toilet. Before long, I puked up the contents on my stomach. I worked things out on a rational level, but I still didn't feel any better. It had been a long time since I faced this kind of hostility from a family member, and it hurt too much for me to bear. It was early in the afternoon by the time. Sorry.
Okay, yeah, I think we'll stop there because it's already 10:40.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I don't want to keep you up too late.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean,
Seems like this is a pretty long chapter, honestly.
it is.
Oh,
It
yeah.
is. You got 1, 2.
Okay.
No, actually, we're close to the
I
end.
could
Finish it.
Yeah, I could finish this. Yeah.
Go ahead and finish it.
It was early afternoon by the time Regid returned to the room. Looking a bit happier than usual, he took out a small envelope and started to show it to me. When I looked up at him from my seat on the bed, he stopped and frowned. Did something happen, Rudius? I ran into my father. He's here in the city. Regid's expression grew even sterner. Did he say something unpleasant to you? Yes. You haven't seen each other in some time, correct? Or some time, correct? Well, yeah. But you had a fight? Yes. Tell me the details. I described the entire incident from start to finish as honestly as I could. Once I'd finished, Richard said, I see, then fell silent. That was the end of our conversation. After some time, he quietly left the room. Eris came back in the evening. Something had obviously happened, judging by how excited she was. There was leaves stuck to her clothes and streaks of dust on her face, but she looked happy. It seemed like the goblin slaying job had gone off well. That was good, at least. Hey there, Eris. Hey, Rudius, I'm back. You'll never guess what. Huh? When I smiled up at her, Eris's eyes went wide with shock. An instant later, she ran across the room to me. Who was it? She shouted frantically, shaking me by the shoulders. Who did this to you? I'm fine. It's no big deal. Oh, come on. You can't be serious. We went back and forth like that a while, but Eris was really persistent. I ended up giving in and telling her about what happened with Paul. In a flat, emotionless voice, I recounted the whole story for a second time. What I said, how he reacted, and how it all ended. Harris's response was an explosion of fury. I can't believe this. How could he say those things? You worked your butt off getting us here, and he calls that playing around? He's a total failure as a father. I'll kill that stupid jerk. That somewhat alarming declaration, she stormed out of the room with her sword in her hand. I didn't even have the energy to try to stop her. A few minutes later, Regard carried Eris back into the room by the scruff of her neck like an unruly kitten. Let me go, Regard! You shouldn't interfere in a family squabble, Regard said, depositing his prisoner onto the floor. Eris immediately spun around and glared up at him. There are some things you should never say to your child, even if you're fighting. This is true. I can understand how Rudius' father felt. Oh, yeah? Well, what about how Rudius feels then? You know him. He's the most carefree, confident person on the planet. You can punch or kick him, and he just shrugs it off. But look at him now. He's devastated. Perhaps you ought to console him then. I'm sure a young woman like yourself can manage that. What? As Eris flapped her mouth wordlessly, Regard turned and quietly exited the room. Left behind with me, Eris began to fidget, then started drifting relentlessly around the room, doing nothing in particular. She shot frequent glances over in my direction. Sometimes she'd pause, assume her usual arms akimbo pose, and open her mouth to say something only to snap it shut and resume her wandering. The girl was seriously antsy. It was like watching a bear at the zoo or something. At the end, Eris quietly sat down next to me on my bed. She didn't say a word, and she left a little distance between us. What sort of an expression was on her face right now? I hadn't been looking too carefully. I didn't have the energy. A little more time passed in silence. Eventually, I noticed Eris wasn't sitting next to me anymore. Just as I was wondering where she'd gone, she wrapped her arms around me from behind. It's okay. I'm here for you. As she spoke those words, Eris hugged my head tightly. I was enveloped in softness, warmth, and the faintly sweaty scent of her body. After the year and a half we spent on the road together, that smell was a very familiar one, and right now it was oddly comforting. My family's rejection had filled me with anxiety and fear, but now those feelings seemed to melt away. Maybe Eris was family too at this point. If she had been around in my previous life, I might have escaped my misery much, much earlier. Judging from how much that one embrace did for me, it sure seemed plausible. Thanks, Eris. I'm sorry, Rudius. I'm not too good at this sort of thing. I reached up to squeeze one of Eris's hands as she hugged me. It was a sword fighter's hand, strong and calloused, a testament to her hard work. Not exactly what you expect from the little lady of a noble house. Don't apologize. It meant a lot to me. Okay. Something inside me was piecing itself back together. I felt myself growing slightly calmer. With a quiet sigh of relief, I let myself slump back against Eris. I needed to lean on her a little, at least for now. That's the end of the chapter.
And now everybody can hear me again. I tend
Gisu.
to mute myself on both Discord and the stream sometimes.
Mhm.
But yeah, okay. So the next half of this, some of this is going to follow the anime, and then some of it isn't. So get prepared for a large chunk of stuff that was never in the anime next week. Because once we get to finding out how Regent's Day was and how that happens, and also what Eris did and how that affects them leaving the actual Millis continent, like there's a whole bunch of stuff that's not going to be the same. So we'll have fun with that. Sorry for making you jump in and read for me, Shim. I was just
Oh, that's okay.
I don't know why today I was having so much trouble reading. I was honestly doing my best.
Probably tired.
Yeah, well, no, not so much that. It's just I was focusing more on trying to make sure I was acting how the characters were supposed to act in that situation and not enough on the reading. And it's like, dude, I'm normally good at this. What the hell is happening? So, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at the moment.
All good.
But yeah,
Arguing myself is a weird feeling.
Yeah. If you want, next time around, whoever's reading, we can.
I think it does it go over to Sonic and then goes.
Yeah, goes to Sonic and then back to you technically. Unless you want to give it to Moon and Sonic.
Yeah, either one, whoever wants to.
Yeah.
Because I did a half a reading, so.
A half a reading, indeed.
Yeah.
Half a read is good enough for him,
Yeah.
apparently.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. I mean, if people want to come in, you know, I'm good. Being support.
Meanwhile, over at Regent.
Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice, Aquaman is still making sandwiches. All right.
Meanwhile, on Regent's corner, Regent is still being Regent.
All right.
And Eris is
meanwhile, in a parallel universe where everyone suddenly speaks Polish.
And then,
meanwhile, while everyone is saying meanwhile, anyway, moving on.
God damn it, meanwhile, Richie,
no. We gotta wrap things up. It's almost 10 till 11. We have to wrap things up.
I was just going to say that Eris was just busy kicking a person. I was like, okay, so business is normal.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, if we wanted to go into the what if scenarios, my whole thing upon like him yelling at Rudy the whole time and like Rudy would have just stood back up, turned and looked at him and goes, "You know, this is your fault for not letting me see you for almost a decade now."
This is true, though.
Oh, yeah, or for half a decade. It's been over 5 years. He hasn't seen his family in 5 years. I would honestly, I guess I'm just it's just the angry like person in me.
But no,
at this point in time,
if
I were Rudy, I would have turned around and said the reason this all happened is because you haven't even let me contact you in 5 years. And suddenly you expect me to be like this unbelievably super great person. I'm just human. I'm a fuck up just like you.
Well, I mean,
and a child.
Okay, like the equivalent of this would be like I'd be living out in like rural Japan or something that.
Me turning around and going, "You couldn't even find my mother?"
Yeah, like
fuck off and
even,
die.
Like he tried.
Like I would have ended it. I would have said "fuck off and die" and then walked right out. But that would have been it. That would have been it. Like, yeah, that would have been the end of it. I was like, if this is how you're gonna behave, I don't want you ever in my life again.
Yeah, because you'd be justified saying it,
dude. Paul is absolutely 100% the luckiest fucking person because Rudy forgave him for all of that shit. I don't know if I'd be that kind. So I mean, once again, it's another one of those moments where, like, regardless of who's in the right, who's in the wrong, the fact that Rudy could forgive him after he started all of that is insane.
Yeah, because it's
Like,
like,
he's definitely grown.
mhm.
And
There's also
it's
runes
kind
in
of
that
good.
too.
It's kind of good that happened, considering how season 2 ended. Like, it is the
Yeah.
complete inverse.
Yeah,
It's the
I was
complete inverse of
I was a
that.
little distraught.
Well,
Yeah.
we made it 30% of the way, like 31% of the way through the book. We shoot through 90 pages today. I got us
Yep.
like around through, like, what was it? When you took over, it was like 30 pages in?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay. Yeah. So you covered the other 60. You do
Yeah,
the
no
other
problem.
2/3. I appreciate it.
No problem. Yep.
Any last minute thoughts? I know we've talked about this particular situation
Yeah,
a
especially when I was
lot.
trying to watch the anime.
Yeah.
But I
We've
mean,
definitely
it's just
talked
kind of a
about that.
tough situation the whole way around. I
I'm
mean,
more looking forward to Rune trying to chew out Rudy after that. What happens in season 2? Just be like, shut the fuck up, Rune.
yeah,
Well, here we are coming up on the geese thing.
I like that
Yeah.
part.
So
of the
that's
anime.
how
Yeah.
we're
Geese
starting
is such a
next week.
homie.
Yeah, Geese is such a homie, and the bartender's a real
He
one.
is the MVP. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, yeah, because he was like, well, at least he's not a corpse. Walks out casually with his fucking dangling copper balls.
Yeah, and then
Fucking Geese is such a like
and
a
then the
fucking
bartender's
cool
just
guy.
like, "Hey kid, I don't know what happened, but you should at least look at the man." It's like-
Yeah, so it's like in
That's the
tandem,
thing,
those
though.
guys are like,
That's
yeah,
the thing,
we
though.
need that kind of
Rudy
yeah.
wasn't able to look at him out of just sheer fucking fear,
Yeah, well, fear and probably frustration,
shame,
and
yeah, all
shame.
sorts of
Yeah,
stuff. And it's like,
Embarrassment, all
yeah,
that
I
jazz.
love that. I love that Geese has to be the one to sit there and hammer it home. He's like, what fucked up expectations do you have for your 11-year-old son?
but it's true though. It's
Yeah.
like the equivalent of this would be like if my father was mad because I didn't read like the police station reports of
Like,
something happening
here's the
when
thing.
I was trying to fucking be alive in a country I don't know the fucking
Here's the
language
thing.
in.
At this point in time, that whole previous life thing might as well just be memories that he had. Like, he is basically Rudius at this point in time. He just has these memories of like this other life. Right?
Yeah.
Because the boy is basically an 11-year-old, a smart 11-year-old,
Yeah.
essentially just an 11-year-old. Like,
Yeah.
everybody gets hung up on this whole, oh, he's so much older, and like, no. He's
Were
got
you-
memories of this
He
previous
just has
life,
memories.
but he is
That's
very
it.
much still the
Would you
age
be
that he is
capable-
physically.
Would you be capable of supporting yourself as an 11-year-old anywhere here?
Dude,
Like if
And
you were
all the
dropped
shit-
off in a place
all
you
the
don't
shit that
understand
Rudy's had to do,
at 11 years old.
all the shit that Rudy has figured out and done, I probably wouldn't have been able to pull off at 21, much less 11.
Like I told you, like I told you,
Yeah.
they were extremely lucky that they woke up next to Regerd and not like ended up in the back of a slave wagon or fucking killed by monsters.
Oh
or
yeah, I was
dropped
gonna
into
say
a
anywhere
or
fucking
next to a
else.
volcano.
monster. Yeah.
Yeah, like they
Like,
were.
Or
they
God
were
forbid,
extremely
very
God
lucky.
forbid, Nokopara.
Yeah, just oh my god, alternate
Little
reality
horse-faced
where
bastard.
where he's just the fucking. It's like Guardians of the Galaxy, except Nokopara is like their fucking
Well,
mentor.
I mean, if Roxy had run into them and not been so
Oh,
afraid
yep.
of Regerd,
That is
this
true.
would
I
have been
forget
all
that
a moot
Nokopara
point.
and her were
So
friends.
partially, this can be
Mhm.
blamed on Roxy and her cowardice.
Partially, yeah.
Yeah.
Justified. I don't know if Roxy could be
Dude,
put
there are
into this,
so
but
many
really.
people that could be blamed for this.
Yeah, well, also, like, I'm.
the
Another
thing,
part of me
here's-
is like,
here's my
wait,
other
why
thing.
didn't Zenith and Lilia be like, hey, what the fuck? Why are you sending our son off to this fucking thing?
And
You know,
not
I'm
letting
surprised
us.
that none of them
Here's
said
here's
anything.
my other thing. Here's my
Oh,
other
yeah.
thing.
You know,
Here's
they
my
just
other.
kind of let it happen.
Here's my other. If Rudy had been allowed to send letters on a semi-regular basis to his family back home, he probably would have thought to actually send a letter to them letting him know that he was all right after the teleportation incident. The
Listen.
reason it did not occur to him is because it wasn't a thing that he had in front of his mind, because he just hadn't done that in 5 years.
Yeah. So it's
So,
just,
He
I don't
was
know.
again-
busy with protecting
Again,
Eris.
Paul, this is on you.
Yep. Like there are many parties that could be responsible in their own way, but yeah, it's like
But
it's
at the end of the
basically
day,
boils down to
it
Paul
boils down to
knocking
Paul.
his own son out
Yeah,
and throwing him on a trolley
Like,
where he had no idea what's going on.
this
and
is
forcing
where
him
you
to do
Telling
something
him,
fucked up.
don't
he wasn't
contact
aware of.
me.
and saying,
yeah,
do
dude, I mean,
not
like-
contact anyone in your family. You're not allowed to. And it's like, are you
No
fucking
matter
kidding
what.
me?
Yeah, and it also was kind of like, I mean, I
Fuck
guess I
you.
can see why Lilia would have not said anything, but like, if I was Zenith and I was like, husband, I pushed that boy out of my fucking body, and you beat the shit out of him and threw him onto a cart. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah.
I would have been pissed. I'm sure she was, but I'd be like, I'm surprised that like there was no point of view from her that would have at least
I mean,
justified it, or you know what I mean?
thankfully, Paul
I
was
would've
on
been
his
pissed.
own. Thankfully,
Yeah.
Paul was on his own with with Norn, because
Yeah,
if Lilia had been there and found out about this, she'd have beat Paul senseless. And she's the
Yeah.
goddamn maid.
100%.
yeah.
And she's the fucking maid. Are you
I
kidding
mean,
But
she
me?
she's
knows how to
also
swing a sword.
a former adventurer.
She knows how to swing a sword and land
Oh,
and throw a punch.
no. Lilia's not. Lilia's not a former adventurer.
I thought it said that she knew how to use a sword.
She does know how to
But
use
then
a
again,
sword.
I
She's
guess
not
you
an
don't have to be
adventurer, though.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh
kicked
no,
him
she
pretty
was a
damn hard in the
guard.
shins,
You're
though.
right. You're
She
right.
was a guard, got hurt, poisoned or something, and then had
Yep.
to become a maid. And
Yep.
she was also the daughter of the sword school master that Paul was just talking about,
hmm
and he literally forced himself on her.
Yep.
Yep.
Like a bastard.
Yeah. Oh, Paul's absolutely a bastard.
Yeah, you get no right on that.
Yeah. Paul. All right. Rudy's in the wrong for like rising up to Paul's aggression, like trying to challenge, but like Paul's in the wrong for just making assumptions and just go, like, if he had just let Rudy say 3 more sentences, he'd understand everything.
Yeah. I mean, even then, it's just like, what would you rather have your son do? Go like, I fended for myself, starving and fucking powerless.
Well,
I
that's
was
what
fucking
Geese
would you
brought
have
up.
wanted
He
him
was
to
like,
do
enough,
that?
"What were
kid.
you expecting to find? An armless,
Yeah.
legless, eye missing, like barely alive person? Like, be glad that he's alive."
Yeah,
Be glad.
exactly.
Instead,
It's like, did you
where
want
does
him to-
Paul go? Where does Paul go? First fucking thing, right to anger.
I mean, granted, he was also
Anger, disappointment,
pretty
all these
inebriated,
things. Like,
so that's
like,
like didn't help. But at the same
again,
time, that doesn't condone it. Yeah,
no excuse for
that
being
doesn't condone.
inebriated.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
No
it doesn't
excuse
condone it either.
whatsoever. In fact, double on him, because he's inebriated before talking to his son. So that's even
Yeah.
worse. He should have
Yep.
been sober for this whole thing.
Well,
Yep.
there is the thing of like he didn't expect to beat Rudy that
Don't
day.
care.
He's
Don't
not cleaning
care.
up or anything.
Don't care.
Well, he also has a
He
daughter.
could have
too.
sobered up.
Well, you
He
should a
could have
little
so-
bit.
He could have sobered up during that conversation, but instead he chose to keep drinking. Do not
Yeah.
care. Do
Oh,
not
okay,
fucking
that-
he
care.
didn't. Well, yeah. He also has a daughter
ju-
too,
yeah.
so that like that
Yeah,
doesn't.
and
condone
he
it,
Yeah.
drinks
because
around
it's
his
like-
daughter, who is
Yeah.
way more innocent and precocious than Rudy.
Yeah, and impressionable. So
I mean, Rudy is not to be fucked with when you start talking shit.
yeah,
That's
it was
just
just
how
it was
goes.
sad. It's just sad all the
It
way
is.
around. I'm
It's
glad they made
absolutely
up for
sad.
it, but it's just like, oh man.
But yeah, this all
Not at
started.
this point.
This all started with Paul kicking Rudy out of the house. Like,
hmm
the way that it happened, the lack of contact, all those things, Rudy would be absolutely justified after Paul started hitting him to just throw him back against the wall
I mean, he kind
and just look at him, scoff, and say, "You're such a disappointment. I never want to talk to you. I never want to see you or talk to you again," and just walk out.
Yeah, he could have just
Like,
said that.
yeah.
That
And
could
then
have just been the
Geese,
end of
and
it.
then Geese would show up again talk to him, put that context down, Paul would try and go and like confront Rudy, but it'd be too late. Paul destroyed the relationship.
Yep.
This is all on Paul.
Yep. And then he would have technically lost another one of his family, but
Yeah.
by his hand.
By
instead of
his own
fate.
hands. Yeah.
Yep. Instead of
And that would have been
unfortunate.
like Rudy would have straight up disowned him. And like the only thing that would have kept Rudy even remotely close to family would have been finding out about Norn.
Yep.
It's just like, do you at least want to meet your little sister?
And even then, that would be like kind of a.
I doubt the little sister would want to meet him.
Kind of thing.
No, but here's the thing. At this point in time, Rudy had not thrown hands back at Paul. So that whole thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So this
it was
would have
just
been getting
unfortunate
introduced to her brother.
The natural way.
The
and it would have
natural
been
way,
like,
and not.
hey,
Yeah.
this
Like,
is your
this
brother.
whole thing,
not...
this whole incident, Paul said the whole reason Norn has such a complex about Rudius, does not like him, thinks the worst of him, all this other shit, again, comes back on Paul. The whole family dynamic is ruined because of Paul.
That is true. And like,
I do not
in a distant way
not blame Rudy for fighting back and then unleashing all of this shit back at him. He's like, because Paul just built up this whole thing of saying, why weren't you doing this? Why weren't you? He was like, I was doing my best, you fucking idiot. And like,
I mean, that's because it was
also,
true. It was 100% true.
Rudy in his head, I think honestly that the reason Rudy asked about Sylvie is because he just never fathomed that Paul would not be with Zenith.
Have taken care of the
taken care of the family. Like that would have been the other thing. He was like, why didn't you ask about my mother? And he's like, turns right around and goes, you haven't found mother? What have you been doing this entire time? I've been saving countless people.
Looking for them, but not good enough, apparently.
But not your own family.
Yeah.
And then Rudy would have started walking. Paul would have been like, where are you going? And Rudy would have just turned right around and be like, to do the job you
look for my mother.
To do the job that you couldn't do, you drunken, useless old piece of shit. And they just walked right out. There are so many scenarios where I have Rudy just fucking calling him out on his bullshit and just walking off. And just being like, I'm going to do the thing you couldn't because I'm better than you.
At the very least, I'm glad that they made up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad that
the second half of this makes up for the first. Absolutely. But like in the moment of this,
took a bit.
Like every time I read this part, I come up with other ideas for how I would have handled it differently, and none of it is good. None of it.
Yeah, it would have. Well, I mean, you also introduced the scenario or the what if situation of what if they went the berserk route? Yeah.
Yeah, I like.
Then what if the story just ended right then and there?
Yeah, I mean, shit. It was short story, 5 books. We're good.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been a really tragic end. I mean, it would have made for an interesting thing, but keep in mind that
right now we've only gone through one turning point. Just
that
one.
Is true. We haven't even met Cool Man.
We have not met Orsted. We have not met Orsted yet.
Yep.
Odds are, by the time we get done with season 2, in the books, season 3 of the anime will already be out.
That's true.
Because we're not moving quite as quickly as I thought we would be, but we're still moving faster than Slime.
Who cares? We're having fun with it.
Yeah, we are, and we're having conversations. We're having conversations comparing the two, and having a good time with it. All right, guys. I think that's going to be it for us.
Yeah, no.
I am loving.
Quick, we're going on the tangent.
I am loving all this. Okay, Paul didn't raise a son. Rudy raised a father. That's so true.
That's a great way to put that.
He got used to them not existing. Why should they exist now? Yeah, exactly. But yeah, those are some very good points. But yeah, guys, I think we've given plenty of opinions at this point. I think we're good. So we're going to head out. It's past 11 already, and I didn't mean for us to go this long. But thank you for hanging out with us and chilling with us. as we continue our journey through Mushoku Tensei with Volume 5. Probably in the next week or two, we should finish this. If we
Hopefully
keep
before
going,
the end of the year.
If yeah, I'm hoping we'll be at Volume 6 next year. If we just keep letting Shim read everything, Shim and Moon, we just let them do it.
Yeah, I was gonna say Moon,
Sonic
Moon's
and I are
included in
just
this
here to
too.
give our opinions. You know?
I was kind of hoping
No,
to,
that's
looking
fair.
forward to reading as Paul here, but it's like, no, let's just let this happen.
It's
I want if I
it
can
was
read
kind
as
of a
Geese instead, I'll be
complicated
fine.
thing and a feeling,
Yeah,
so
no, 100%.
Yeah, oh no,
I would
okay,
hope that
Sonic, you
would
want to
have
be
carried
Geese?
it. It would be
You want to
really
be
hard.
Geese?
I want to be Geese. I want to be
Yeah,
Geese.
there you go.
next
You can be
time.
the MVP.
That's
Let me get
part.
some justice here. I was looking forward to this.
Yeah.
I want to Geese.
So who's
Like, yeah,
reading?
Paul,
who's
you're an
who's
idiot.
doing the narration then next week?
The narration.
Yeah, is it back to
Are you
Shim?
talking about
Is-
like
do you
the?
want to narrate or?
I mean,
yeah, I was like,
'cause
if
the
Sonic,
narration is just gonna
if you
be-
just
I don't know,
want to be
who's-
Geese
who's
and let
next?
somebody else narrate, we can do it that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
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 When
Or
was
wants to do it.
Sonic's last chance to read?
Yeah, that's true.
Because like
that is very
I
true.
read the last 2 times. Shim was before me.
Yep. And then
And
you
this
read
one's going to be Richie's.
today.
Well, Richie read a little bit.
I
And
read a
that-
little
yeah.
bit, and that was about it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
read
and then
I
I
read
covered
the
the other half.
Sylphie incident.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And that was probably what, a month ago or something like that.
Yeah.
Something
think
like that.
so.
It was a while ago.
Yeah.
It's
Screw it. You go ahead and do it. I don't care.
Yeah,
yeah.
I
Go
get
for
to
it.
call my old actee out on his BS.
That's
Yep.
okay. We're only
You
gonna
gotta-
get 10%.
you gotta bring
Fight
your-
with myself.
We're only gonna
almost.
get 10% of the way through the book, but that's okay.
Yeah. You gotta give
Oh,
your
no.
A game.
That's the
for the
funnest 10% we're gonna have.
No, no, because half the time we're gonna be stopping you to tell you that you said a word wrong.
I know, that's the fun of it.
How dare you,
fine.
Sonic?
I will make a
Sonic, I
request.
do have a request.
Yeah.
Pre-read.
What's up?
Pre-read this before we get back to Monday. Do a
Pre-read
little
or, like,
pre-reading.
Wait, you want me to read the
Like,
whole
you know
thing
what's gonna
then?
happen in
the
Just
anime.
stuff.
Yeah, that I was gonna say you were gonna read the whole. It's your turn next week. You would be
Yeah.
reading. I'm saying pre-read it to yourself. Like you just read it, and then when we come back on Monday, you read it again, but knowing where things are going, so you don't have to move so quickly through it.
Yeah, well also plus like I think next chapter is the reconciliation, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So
it's the conversation.
It's gonna be
This
pretty
is
heavy, dude.
this is reunited, so it's gonna be the whole thing with Geese and then them trying
Yeah.
to make up and stuff like that. But there's
Yeah,
also
so-
some really important stuff that happens after this that the anime never covered.
Yeah, so it's gonna have a
That's
lot
the
of
stuff
weight.
I'm really into. So next week is gonna be some really good dialogue about things that never happened in the anime. Once we get past the
Yeah.
Paul and Rudius stuff, it's gonna be
Yeah,
all
so
new
it'll be,
territory, and I cannot wait.
Yeah, I mean that'll be interesting to see because I mean they only had to cover so much in the anime because time constraints, animation deadlines, and all that.
I mean, they skipped a whole story arc.
Yeah,
Like
which is,
it's not just what
I can see.
Regerd was doing, because what Regerd did was important. There's also we've talked about this before in the Eris side story thing. Eris saved a little girl that was being protected by a female knight who, as it turns out, is Zenith's sister. So
which is
Rudy's
fucking
aunt,
huge.
which is a big deal because she ends up she is very instrumental in what happens to get them from the port in Millis back to the central continent. So it was like they skipped them just leaving the central continent and just showed like a little moment of like, oh yeah, now they're both seasick. And it's like, motherfucker. There was a lot of really good stuff. Up until this point, they have been faithful to the light novel. And that's the time that they skipped some stuff. They also skipped a restaurant at the bottom of the central continent where Rudy gets to eat rice for the first time. And he's trying some food at a restaurant, and he's like, this is almost reminiscent of home. Too bad it sucks. And he just lays into the chef, and the chef just fucking finally closes his restaurant. And it turns out the chef used to be an assassin, so he went back to killing people.
Oh, good. That's like a fucking
They
JoJo
skipped
thing.
all of that. They skipped all of that shit.
That would have been a really funny OVA thing, though.
Right? They skipped
Yeah.
all of it. All
Even
of
like
it.
an episode minus or episode 1.5 or something
Because
like that.
right after this, they leave Millis. They show like the little traveling across sea, and then it's literally we're in Sharon. We're in Sharon, and he's saving his sister Aisha, and
Yep.
and her mom. And it's like, man, we could have had one more episode. One episode was all that was required to cover this, and then we'd get to Sharon.
Yeah.
25 episodes instead of 24. That's all I'm saying. That's all we
Yeah, it
needed.
wouldn't have been that much more.
Yeah,
I
it
mean, maybe
wouldn't
they're
have been that
going to do
big
an
of a
OVA
deal.
at some point, but it would. I think at this point it'd be a little too late,
Yeah, it'd
considering
be-
the circumstances of season 2.
Well, the OVA that they
And
showed
the
was
weighted
what
shit.
Eris was up to. So at least they introduced
Yeah.
Cliff, who's very important in season 2.
Yeah, because of who he devotes his life
guy.
to.
Also, here's the other thing. There's going to be another thing about once we start covering the volumes in season 2. There's going to be side stories featuring Eris that never showed up in the anime.
Oh,
We got
So
the
we'll be
OVA,
finding
that was
out what
pretty
Eris
fire.
is up. No, for season 2.
No, we
not
got the
season 1.
overall over. Oh no, you're right.
you mean like her adventures
Yeah.
with Ghislaine?
No, her adventures with Ghislaine. Dude, do you know where she is?
I have no idea.
She
Well,
is
'cause the anime
studying.
never did
She is studying with Gonfall, the sword god.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's at
that's
that
new.
school. She's at that school. Like that stuff that was technically side story in season 2 that they just didn't cover. There was just
While
like, yeah,
Ruiz
we're
was
doing
getting
all this
married,
stuff.
she was
Never
studying
met.
the blade.
She literally has been like the entire time since she left. She's been at the sword god's like school temple whatever. So she's been training under Gonfall with other sword kings, sword emperors, stuff like she is growing, my dude.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh
She learning.
well, literally, when she met the sword god, he asked, "What did she? Why does she?" He's like, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "I want to get stronger." "Why do you want to get stronger?" "I want to kill Orsted."
Damn.
Yeah, literally said that to Gonfall, and he goes, "Okay." That's all he needed.
He's like, all right,
All
bet."
right, this is
Yeah.
how we'll do. This is how we're gonna do this.
Yeah, it's crazy once you actually get into some of her stuff and what she's been up to. Because, yeah, Eris absolutely is like, I need to get strong enough to kill Orsted. But she also knows she can't kill him alone. So she'd have to team up with Rudy to take down Orsted. And it's just like this whole thing.
Yep.
Because the whole reason she left is because she was like, I'm not good enough to stand next to Rudy. Because
Yep.
she puts him on such a fucking pedestal. Anyway.
Yeah, but she kind of worded that kind of bad, and he kind of interpreted it bad, and but that's a different thing.
Once again, it's the same issue that Paul has with kicking him out of the house. Her whole
Everything
reason
boils
she
down
said
to
it
that.
like that is because she realized that if she tried to write out something long, or actually sat down and talked Rudius would have talked her out of it. Yep.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's true.
So I mean, partially this is Rudy's like previous life
Indirectly, Rudy is his
biting
fault.
him in the ass, but
Yeah.
yeah, this is his previous life experience, kind of
But
biting
that
him in
was
the
her
ass a
own
little bit.
decision. Yeah.
But honestly, I think there's part of me that thinks that if she had sat down and talked to Rudy after that night that they had and said,
Yeah.
I'm leaving, I'm going to train under the sword god, Rudy would have been like, okay, cool, let's go.
Yeah, probably.
There's part of me that
honestly.
thinks he straight up would have followed her there. And then,
Yeah, I mean,
and then
probably.
as they got there, she goes, I need to train here. You need to go and you need to go look for your mom. And the best way to do that is not with me right now. And that would have been a better parting for the two of them. Honestly.
Yeah, but I don't think she would have. Thought about that, honestly.
Well, also she's like, "Hey, I'm training to fight Orsted. You need to train to fight Orsted as well. Go
Yep.
to go to the Sharia. Go to the Magic Kingdom, or the Magic School. bus.
Magic Schoolhouse.
No, the Magic
Right
School
on the
Bus.
magic school bus.
There we go. Yeah.
Please let this be a normal isekai anime with Rudius.
With a
No
twist?
way!
No
Oh.
way.
What?
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh
Here-
no!
and then teleportation incident happens.
Speaking of another isekai,
Yeah.
I am currently finishing up volume 6 of Hell Mode, which is pretty fun. I hope that gets an anime sometime soon because it's pretty interesting.
Is it not? Hopefully they don't make a joke for Elmo.
Huh?
You said Helmo, and I thought of Elmo.
Hell Mode.
Okay, I did not hear the D part of that. Sorry.
What is Hellmo? Hell Mode.
That's what I want to know.
Hell
I'm
Mode.
confused too.
All right. If you haven't looked up what Hell Mode is, you should probably get like a plot synopsis of at least the first volume. See if it's your
Is
cup
it
of
like
tea.
a isekai?
It is, in a way, yeah.
Is it about like a guy who's like, oh man, everything's been so easy for me, and then he finds a world that it's like really bad and really hard, and he's like, oh shit, this is bad.
No, he gets brought to a website about a game where they have a
Oh.
Hell Mode, and it's like they give him like these different options, and like Hell Mode is like this because you get easy mode, normal mode, hard mode, extra mode, Hell Mode.
And I'm assuming the difficulty isn't adjustable on the fly.
It is not. Once you choose, that's it. The thing is,
Yep.
he thinks he's playing a game. Turns out he gets isekai'd into another world, and he's on Hell Mode. He starts off as a serf, like the lowest tier of the class system.
No
so it's
party
kind of like a
members.
reverse
Yeah,
isekai.
not even a
Half the
cop. So
experience.
in
That's
order to go
bringing
to
a
the
whole
next
new meaning to the term "surfs up."
and surf and
Yeah.
turf and a bunch of other things. Anyway,
Oh, you think that's hard?
he's
I'm just
no.
a
Here's the
tutorial
thing.
level.
Here's
That's
the
the
thing.
one over there.
The commoners are above him. He's just a serf, right?
Whoa,
Yeah. And so it's
that's pretty
like,
cool.
it like he uses like his gamer and analytical gamer stuff to start moving through stuff. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. I don't want to give away too much. I basically only told you mostly what you can find out from reading like the
I mean,
plot
just from the
synopsis.
title, it sounded like that would be what it would be about.
Yeah.
It makes some
There's
guys like,
7
"Oh, the hard mode
volumes.
sounds
I am
easy."
currently I'm currently finishing up volume 6. It's pretty
It's not done
interesting.
yet, huh?
I love
Okay.
dude, the thing that I love the most is how this character like does all these crazy things, and like in typical kind of Japanese fashion, he's like trying not to be noticed. You know, he does
Yep.
all these crazy things, and then he says, "Oh no, it's this or this." They're the ones that said it when it's actually him doing all these things. So he like gives
So
the
he doesn't
credit
draw
to
attention
other
to
people.
himself.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
purposely trying not to draw attention to himself, and now he has found himself with an offer he cannot refuse. It's so nice. It's so nice because all of his friends in his party are like, "Dude, you're fucking amazing. Let the world know." And he's like, "Fuck that, no." But then like there's like this status, this recognition that he gets, and it would make it where none of the nobility in the world could fuck with him. And he's like, "Oh, damn it." So I would have absolute freedom. Shit. It's like I don't want the title. But nobody could
gotta
fuck
do?
with me and I'd be free. God
Fuck.
God damn it. It's so cool.
Yep.
All right, anyway. Yeah, I highly recommend it if you have a chance. Grab it on Kindle. Oh,
okay.
also, here is a bit of good news for you guys if you're shopping around for more stuff on Kindle. This isn't like a super sale. This is just happening. You can get volume 1 of The Beginning After the End for 99 cents.
99 cents.
Dude,
That's
I
like
literally
cheaper
bought
than a
I literally
burger.
bought the first 4 volumes of The Beginning After the End for Calvin for a little around $10.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, after tax it was insane, dude. I don't even fucking know. It was crazy. Actually, I don't know if that's because of me. Could somebody look up real quick on Amazon how much T-Bait is? Like just the first
Uh,
volume. Just go on
Oh, is that
Amazon, look up the beginning
abbreviation
after
for
the
it?
end. Yeah, T-bait is the
Okay, I was
abbreviation.
like, is that like a separate
Oh.
thing?
You can look up the beginning after the end too. I just need to know
Mm.
what volume 1 would be on Kindle for you, if it's 99 cents or if it's something more. Because volume 1 was 99 cents, but as you get to like volume 11, they get more expensive.
That is cheaper than a burger.
Yeah. Is
Why
the
is
first
the first thing
volume
that pops
cheaper?
up for me? Fucking.
Huh? Huh?
Hold on. Sorry, it was like a slime was like the first thing that popped up.
Oh,
1 second.
The beginning after the slime.
the beginning after the
Understandable.
slime. Yes,
It
indeed.
was
Yeah.
what was an actual novel? Hold on, let me actually go back. What was the novel?
The beginning
Like
after the
shopping.
end is the novel.
I mean,
Series.
the way a lot of
Volume-
the beginning after the end reads, like it very well could be, you know,
Yeah, if
Rimuru
you
just
like.
coming over from a past life.
Well, no,
Oh my God,
I
what's
would
up?
say I'd
Oh,
say
volume 1 of slime. What the fuck?
especially with like the beginning of it, it has a lot more in common with Mushoku
beginning of the
Tensei than
beginning
it
after
does
the
have
end.
Yeah, the starting point of the beginning after the end feels very much like Mushoku Tensei, just without Rudy, without all the perviness.
Ah, good.
Like if Rudy wasn't a pervert, he would absolutely be Arthur.
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 Art.
Or
RT.
or Gray, however you want to call
So
him.
does the beginning of the beginning after the end have an end right now, or is the beginning of the beginning after the end still going?
I believe either volume 12 or volume 13 is going to be the end.
Oh, okay. So they're still in the middle of the beginning after
Also,
the end.
Yes.
Please understand that
Okay.
Turtle Me, the author of this,
Yeah.
is he resides in DC.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, like America.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whoa.
He is a
Cool. I like the
Korean web
comics.
novelist, and he lives here in the States. So
Neat.
this is
Okay.
getting an anime next year. So that makes it a U.S. A Japanese anime adaptation of a U.S. web novel and web comic.
That's pretty sick. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
For
Did
the beginning
either
the
of you
end,
find the
Audible.
first
Audible.
volume? Not Audible,
The-
Kindle.
Yeah, Kindle is
Kindle.
$5. It looks like.
$5 for
wow.
the first volume? Is that volume 1?
Hold on, that's for 9. Let me check 1. real
Yeah,
quick.
volume 1, my guy. That's what I'm looking at. for
Uh,
volume 9,
that
that's
is
cheap.
9. That is $1. That is $1.
Yeah.
Okay.
You guys can get that. Okay, I think it's $2.99 for book 2, 3, and 4, if I'm remembering right. So it wasn't just me that got them at that price.
Let me check book 2.
Dude, look at it.
Uh,
There's also a
book
deal
2,
in
yep.
there where you can get like X amount of
4.
books for like a certain amount. But yeah, guys, 100%.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah, 1, 2, and 3.
like-
You could probably get the first 5 books for like $15.
Mhm.
Oh wait, I don't even see where is book 3?
The first.
Book
Like
3 does not
okay,
pop
if
up,
you
that's
if
interesting.
you scroll down, you guys are making me go to Amazon now.
Dink dink. Yep.
Yeah. But yes, you can just
Oh,
type
that's
T-bait
Reckoning.
and they know what you're saying. TBATE.
Oh. Yep.
Okay.
You
Okay,
can have
so if I
in
go
early
to
years, book 1.
early years book 1. Now, if you scroll down just a bit,
If
first
everyone in the
3, there you
same
go.
room is reading T-bait, would that technically be a mass T-bait?
I hate you. I hate
That's
you
gonna be the
so
name of the
fucking
first
much.
stream now.
All right, under this, does it give you the option to get like 3 books, 5 books, stuff like that?
3 books for $7.
Yeah.
First 5 for $14.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Yeah. So I would highly recommend it. Do yourself the service of getting these
Almost
books.
doesn't.
Yeah, they're really good.
Mm.
Now
I'll
if
take your
you
word
if you
for it.
oh dude, are you serious? You take my word for it. Shim.
Yeah, because then you have good recommendations.
Oh, okay. I thought you were like, well, I guess I'll have to take your word for it and like not read it. I was like, no, please read it.
No, that's
Please read
not it. I meant like I'll take your word for it, and the fact that you know about fucking anime and you read your fucking shit.
I read a lot of shit.
So,
yeah, I do. I
yeah.
do read a lot of shit.
So you have authority about what you think is good and what you think is
yeah.
bad.
If I would say, all right, Shem, are you enjoying Mushoku Tensei's light novels right now? Are you enjoying the story that we're going through?
Early on, it's like, oh boy, it's these moments just more deliberated.
Okay, so
Hooray. But
all
other
right,
than that, everything else.
if we took all of Rudy's perviness away,
Yes, I would enjoy it a lot
Okay.
more.
that's the beginning
I'd
after
enjoy
the
it
end.
80% more.
That is 100% the beginning after the end. No joke.
Yeah. Like we'll get to the point where it's
I would
past
tell you.
that,
I would
and then
tell
I'll be
you
like, okay, this is great.
this is
but you
the
know what I mean?
best. This
So
is
that'd
the
be great.
This is one of the best Christmas investments you can do for yourself.
Christmas investments.
Because
Whoa.
5 books for under $15, my guy.
Whoa.
That's crazy.
Whoa.
The only reason
Or
I'm
all
saying
11
that.
for 44.
Here's the thing. The only reason all 11 for 44. Yeah, you could do that too.
Yeah.
Here is my thing though. Here's my thing. The reason I'm saying 5 is because I know from Moon's experience of listening to the audiobooks when I sent them that he was like, fuck, after he gets done with one, after he gets done with like, because the audiobooks, the way you do the audiobooks, the first audiobook contains it's a omnibus containing the first 2 volumes, and then the second one is 3 and 4, and then from there it's individual books. But like he got through the first 2, he was like, I'm really into this. This is really good. Got through 3 and 4, and he's like, fuck, I need volume 5.
Yeah.
Got a volume 5. Fuck, I need volume 6. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm
Now you
currently
buy
on
this
6
one.
right now.
Currently on 6. Yeah, and so the thing is, I have a thing that drops the price down. So instead of paying like $22 for a book, it's like $7 for the audiobook for me to gift it to him. So I've been
Like
doing
you have
that.
the
And it is much appreciated.
membership, maybe?
Yes.
I have an Audible membership, and I have a Kindle membership.
Ah.
Yeah. So I think that's part of what lowers it. I would recommend the Audible membership because you get a free audiobook every month. Like you can pick whatever it is, you get a free credit, and that equals 1 book. And so yeah,
I mean, I guess you could just get all the beginning books, like.
but
with
guys, I have all 11 audiobooks and Kindle books for the beginning after the end. Oh yes.
Okay.
Oh yes, I did.
Oh, yes.
I
Oh,
absolutely
yes.
did. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you could just milk that.
Yeah, I could. But yeah, guys, if you do end up reading it, I'm curious how quickly you'd get through volume 1, and then I would love to hear your thoughts on volume 1 and beginning after the end. Like I really do want to talk beginning after the end with you guys. Like Moon and I have had wonderful conversations about this series.
I'm sure it's really cool.
And Moon is like, I hope the anime is good because this story is so good. And I'm like, I'm right there with
I
you.
would hope that it gets a good
And
adaptation.
so it's confirmed to have an anime.
It is confirmed to have an anime. The studio that's behind it isn't the greatest. I would have preferred a much more higher tier studio, but we'll work with it.
Yeah.
The
Sometimes better than
studio
nothing
that
at this
worked on
point.
it is the one that did last season. They did the strongest mage in the Demon Lord's army is human.
Was it good?
It
Question
was
mark?
it was actually interesting. Like
Okay.
the animation wasn't bad. I think there are parts where the problem is that they suffer from the same thing that everybody else is suffering from, which is too much use of CG in CG animation. Like, I get
Yeah,
it. You
that's
don't
a
want to
hard
draw.
thing to-
I get it. There's like a whole army of like orcs and stuff around. I'm like, or ogres or whatever. But I'm like, my guy, when there's only like 3 or 4 of them on screen, they don't all have to be CG. Please don't.
Yeah, I mean they could do like the pseudo 3D thing.
Keep your fucking CG out of my fucking book. You know? Like beginning after the end deserves better than that. Now, if you haven't seen the trailer, you should go look up the trailer for the beginning after the end anime.
Well, see, I
over
think a
on
lot of
YouTube.
anime companies, kind
Yeah.
of side note, I think they would benefit from doing what is called pseudo 3D. Like in Blender, you can do a really cool thing with grease pencil
Yeah.
where your models are 3D, but the way you orient the camera and style their motions and stuff looks 2D, and it looks
Nice.
fantastic.
Awesome.
But it's
See,
kind of a tricky thing to do. But it
my
would be
thing
cool
my
if they
thing
could learn
is
that.
we have the technology because I've played the
Yeah,
Ninja Storm
of course.
games. I've played the Dragon Ball fighting games.
Yeah.
They can do good 3D cell animation. They're just not.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
Anyway.
it's just like we're speaking as like 4 dudes,
Yeah.
but you know what I mean. It's an industry
Well, hi.
decision.
Blah, 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 blah. He said,
Anyway.
blah, 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 said I tore through the first 6 books. Need to go back and start on 7 at some point, as I paused and are in the middle of too many other books right now. but not good 3D Goku animation. Yo, dude,
Yeah.
here's my thing. I absolutely understand that going through 6 books and being like, fuck. Like, dude, there were only 10 books when I started, right?
Yeah.
There were only
Yeah.
10 books when I started. I joined Turtle Me's Patreon so I could get chapters a month, like a week or so every 2 weeks from volume 11s, because I was like, I need to know. And I haven't finished volume 11 yet, which is sad. I should get around to it soon. But yeah, I love this series. It's so interesting.
Yes.
Just like
Right.
with Mushoku Tensei, there are moments where I'm like, I'm so glad I'm not the main character, because I would have said or done this. And it's like I get really into my feelings about this. The anger flows through me. But yeah. Guys, thank you so much. We will see you next time. Tomorrow, Moon and I are doing something Resident Evil related. I don't know if we're finishing up 4 on your New Game Plus stuff so you can finish Professional, or if we're playing RE5. What are we doing?
All right.
Depending
guys
on
looking
how
at?
fast 4 goes, it
Yep.
could be a bit of both. I've already got 5 downloaded, so.
Okay. Well, you can finish off 4 off stream. You don't have to do it on stream.
Says the guy who was yelling at me to do it on stream.
I'm yelling at you. Oh, well, no, I'm just yelling at you to finish it in general.
Fine, I'll play it more in a second.
Sure. Good. No,
I'll
you
beat it
can't.
tonight if I have
You
to.
can't.
Do it live right
do
now.
it. Do it later in the morning, my guy. Don't do it now. Now is Stardew Valley.
Yeah, I gotta
I'm
go to
already
sleep.
on Stardew Valley.
Oh, good,
Yeah.
good. We can jump back in. Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, I
guys
have
have a
a
good
I
night.
have a server or I have a co-op thing on Stardew Valley if you guys want to join. Anyway,
I think we only have 1 vacant house, though.
well, we're gonna drop it. We can add others. It's not that big of a deal. Anyway,
All right,
that's it
you
for
guys
us
have
for
a
the
good night.
night. You guys have a good one. We'll see you next time.
Yep.
Take care. Bye bye for
Mhm.
now.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
I'm gonna get some food and